After Jiang Zhe's first love died of cancer, he was overcome with grief and took his own life to join her in death. Weak and frail, I carried him on my back and ran through the entire town. In the dead of night I knelt at every house, begging for help, until my face was covered in blood, and I managed to save his life. In doing so, I left a jagged, ugly scar on my forehead. From then on, he put aside his resentment and decided to live a good life with me. But later, he dreamed of his dead first love, who said she was lonely and miserable underground, unable to sleep. He dragged me to her grave and forced poison down my throat. You're the reason we can't be together again. Since that's the case, you can go down there and keep Shawan company for me. Only then did I realize that he had always resented me for causing his true love to miss the best time for treatment, reborn into a second life. I was tired and only wanted to live differently. Wu Shuang, I'm begging you, Shawan is sick now, and she needs a large sum of money for treatment. Hearing that familiar voice, I opened my eyes. Ever since he learned that his true love had cancer, my husband, who had disappeared for a week, suddenly came home and knelt before me, pleading miserably. Looking at Jiang Zhe, who was crying bitterly in front of me, I feigned confusion and asked, "But where would I get the money?" Jiang Zhe hesitated before speaking, but his eyes had already darted toward the dressing table inside the room. "The gold hairpin, right, selling the gold hairpin will give us money." Hearing the exact same words as in my previous life, I couldn't help but sneer and curled a corner of my mouth. "You mean, you want to sell my dowry to pay for another woman's medical treatment?" "Jiang Zhe, how do you have the nerve to say such a thing?" The man in front of me immediately changed his expression. He probably didn't expect that I, who had always been meek, would dare to confront him directly. "Wu Shuang, saving a life is a greater merit than building a 7-story pagoda. I beg you, I cannot lose Shawan. Consider it as me owing you. Once Shawan recovers, I'll go work in the provincial capital and redeem your hairpin." Jiang Zhe grew desperate and knelt directly before me. Kowtowing, he kept banging, over and over, until blood seeped from his head, yet he still refused to give up. It was the first time he had ever begged me so humbly, just as I had clutched at his trouser leg and pleaded with him before my death in the previous life. At this moment, the scene before my eyes overlapped with the one from right before my death in the previous life. "It's all my fault, Jiang Zhe. I don't want to die. I beg you, please save me." The next second, Jiang Zhe's voice pulled me back to reality. "Since you're so eager to save her, then figure it out yourself. In any case, I'm not selling this gold hairpin." After saying that, I strode back into the room and hid the gold hairpin on my person. Unlike in the previous life, where I hesitated before giving it to him, that hairpin never returned until the moment of my death. Too, impossible. Shawan can't be dead. Shawan is still alive. She's still alive. Another month later, at Shui Wan's funeral hall, Jiang Zhe held her portrait, howling heart-wrenchingly, crying until he was drenched in tears. Yet the others attending the funeral looked at me with increasingly strange expressions, even though his legitimate wife was standing right there, perfectly fine. He was weeping as if his heart were breaking over the death of another woman. An auntie beside me pulled me aside. Man, you should go and talk some sense into Jiang Zhe. No matter what his past relationship with Shawan was, in the end, she was someone else's wife. It's so unseemly for him to cry like this at her funeral in front of her family." I glanced up and saw that Shui Wan's in-laws all looked displeased, especially her husband, whose face was darker than the bottom of a pot. He had always been bothered by Shui Wan and Jiang Zhe's past relationship, and now his eyes were filled with rage. Looking at the scene before me, I pressed my lips tightly together. I shook my head. "Auntie, it's not that I won't try to persuade him, but you know as well as I do that Jiang Zhe doesn't listen to me. I've always been a person without much resolve. In my previous life, just because my parents said, the Jiang family is well off, you'll live a comfortable life if you marry into it," I nodded and agreed to marry Jiang Zhe. Although we didn't have much of an emotional foundation, we treated each other with respect. It wasn't until a year after our marriage, when a woman from the same town named Shui Wan got cancer, that I finally learned my husband Jiang Zhe had always had someone else in his heart. Shui Wan's parents had passed away, and she had 5 younger siblings to care for. The Jiang family was afraid that marrying her would mean having to support a whole extra group of burdens, so they absolutely refused to give their consent, fearing the two would continue their entanglement. Jiang Zhe's parents hastily found a matchmaker to introduce him to a partner, that is, me. The town was conservative. Shui Wan and Jiang Zhe had caused quite a stir back then. Unable to marry Jiang Zhe, Shui Wan's reputation was tarnished, and she ended up marrying a lame man. The lame man's family was poor. To save more food for her younger siblings, she starved herself until she fell ill. Shui Wan's Husband's family couldn't afford her medical treatment. Upon learning this, Jiangze used his salary to take her to the provincial capital for treatment. Treating stomach cancer required a lot of money, and Jiangze's salary wasn't enough. That's when he conceived the idea of returning home to borrow money from me. In this lifetime, I didn't give him the hairpin, so he took advantage of the family being asleep at night and stole a large sum of the family's business funds to keep Shuewan alive. Within just a week, Shuewan didn't make it and passed away. The money was spent, the illness was treated, and the family ended up with a huge debt because of it. His mother was so angry with him that she had a stroke, yet he wouldn't even spare the expense for a doctor. I never expected Jiangze to be so willing to go all out. Seeing everyone whispering and discussing, I stepped forward and pulled Jiangze up. Don't let Shuewan be disturbed even in death. Let's go home. As soon as the words fell, a crisp slap echoed through the morning hall. The previously noisy place immediately fell silent, with everyone's gaze fixed on my face. Jiangze, his eyes red, roared at me, "Get out. You have no right to say that. If you hadn't repeatedly blocked me from saving Shuewan back then, she wouldn't have died at all." The swelling pain in my cheek left me speechless for a moment. Jiangze glared at me viciously, as if I were the one who had killed his father. "Shuewan is dead, you must be delighted. Right, after all, no one will be competing with you anymore. But let me advise you to give up that thought. Even if Shuewan dies, I won't live on either." After he said that, the mourners began whispering among themselves again. I heard someone sneer, "This Jiangze really is a hopeless romantic, actually wanting to die with someone else's wife." What happened in my previous life had long left me utterly disheartened. I no longer cared what attitude Jiangze had toward me, but this slap, I refused to take for nothing. The next second, I slapped him with all my might. Hands accustomed to years of labor were no less strong than a man's. With that one slap, I sent Jiangze reeling, his head spinning. Standing on the moral high ground before the crowd, I loudly rebuked him. "This slap is for Mom and Dad. You may have been true to Shuewan, but you betrayed the parents who worked so hard to raise you." After saying this, I quietly retreated from the crowd. After all, he wouldn't live much longer anyway. What's the use of holding too much against a dead man? 3. The moment I had just stepped out of the morning hall, sharp, piercing screams suddenly erupted behind me. "Help, someone's dead, someone come quick, Jiangze has committed suicide." The person who rushed out grabbed me. "Yun Wushuang, you need to go in and see. Your husband just suddenly pulled out a knife and slit his wrist. There's a lot of blood." I curled my lips in a cold, detached smile. "Oh, what does that have to do with me?" That person gave me a reproachful look and muttered under their breath, "What a strange couple. One is willing to die for another man's wife, and the other doesn't even care when her own husband kills himself." Another person pulled them aside. "Birds of a feather flock together. Don't bother with them. Saving a life is more urgent right now." In my previous life, after Jiangze's beloved Bai Guang, Shuewan, died, Jiangze caused a scene at the funeral, threatening to follow her in death. The moment he pulled out the knife, I caught the blade with my hand, stopping him by sheer force. Later, the cut healed but left a scar that never truly recovered. Every time the humid southern weather returned, the old wound would ache dully. The last time he attempted suicide, he drank poison in the middle of the night while I was asleep. With my frail body, I carried him and knocked on the doors of every doctor in town, kowtowing and begging for help at each household until my forehead was bruised and bleeding, just to save his life. Later, another rugged, ugly scar was left on my forehead, and from then on, I always wore bangs that didn't suit me. Everyone praised him for his good fortune, saying he had married a wife who loved him as much as her own life. He finally let go of his grudges and settled down with me to build our family. But later, he dreamed that Shuewan appeared in his dream, crying and saying she was lonely and desolate in the underworld. He couldn't sleep night after night. He even dragged me to Shuewan's grave, pried open my mouth, and forced me to drink a bottle of pesticide. Before I died, I heard his venomous voice, "If you had agreed to sell the gold hairpin earlier, Shuewan would never have died. Since you've always stopped me from reuniting with Shuewan, you can go and keep her company for me." I never imagined that my cherished husband would personally send me to the Yellow Springs Road just because of an absurd dream. I also didn't expect that no matter what I did, it would all be in vain. Since heaven has given me a chance to be reborn, I no longer wish to live for him in this life. I only wish to live my own life well. For Jiangze ultimately didn't die, just like in the previous life. He held on to Shuewan's old photo and shut himself in his room for 3 days. 3 days later, Shuewan's funeral was held. Jiangze, dragging his weak body, insisted on attending the scene. During the funeral procession, He insisted on standing at the very front to help carry the coffin, refusing to leave. No matter who tried to pull him away according to the customs here, if the deceased is married, the one who stands at the very front to carry the coffin can only be the deceased's surviving spouse, having not slept a wink or drunk a drop of water for 3 days. His lips were pale, his eye sockets dark, and his eyes filled with sorrow and exhaustion. Jiang Zai's fingertips trembled as he used his sleeve to wipe the dust off the coffin. Bit by bit, Xiao Wan, don't be afraid, I'll come to make it up to you soon. Shui Wan's husband finally couldn't bear it any longer. Xiao Wan is my wife, please have some self-respect. Jiang Zai frowned as he looked at his lame leg, a cold sneer curling at the corner of his mouth. With eyes reddened, he asked, with a leg like that, how can you see Xiao Wan off on her final journey? What if she gets bumped or hurt? Besides, if it weren't for my parents forbidding it back then, Shui Wan and I would have been married long ago. What does any of this have to do with you? The man asked with a darkened face. What happened in the past is in the past. You're married now. Have you considered your wife by doing this? I only recognized Xiao Wan. Hearing him mention me, a flicker of barely perceptible disgust flashed in Jiang Zai's eyes. You, the man clenched his fists tightly, on the verge of exploding. In my previous life, it was I who appeared just in time to take that punch for him. The 4-month-old baby in my womb was brutally beaten out of me. And afterward, I could never conceive again in this lifetime without me. Jiang Zai couldn't dodge in time and took that punch head-on. The slap mark on his left cheek hadn't faded yet, and now his right cheek took another punch. This way, it's symmetrical. The man's forehead veins bulged. Then he raised his fist and struck Jiang Zai again. The weakened Jiang Zai had no strength to fight back. He was pinned to the ground and beaten like a quail. The man said while hitting him, before, I let it slide because you were taking Shui Wan for treatment. But who knew you'd push your luck? Jiang Zai spat out a mouthful of bloody foam. If you had treated Xiao Wan better, she wouldn't have gotten this illness. It's all your fault, the man sneered shamelessly. Then why didn't you marry her back then? Shui Wan is my woman, how I treat her is none of your business. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Zai's older brother, Jiang Su, hurried over to break up the fight, pulling his brother up and apologizing. Look at the state our family is in, and you're still causing trouble here. Get the hell home and stop embarrassing me. Erqiang, I apologize on his behalf. You've already hit him, and your anger should have subsided by now. The man named Erqiang immediately put on a smiling face and waved his hand upon seeing Jiang Su, signaling that the matter was over. Jiang Zai was still unwilling to accept it, but he was dragged away by his older brother to ensure the safety of myself and the child in my womb. I called my brother-in-law the night Shui Wan died to inform him of the situation at home. Jiang Su, who was in the military, rushed back from another province as soon as he learned about the trouble at home. Jiang Su scolded angrily, for the sake of a woman, you nearly dragged the whole family down with you. After learning about Shui Wan's illness, Jiang Zai stole the factory's funds intended for purchasing raw materials to raise money for her treatment. The large order that had been placed was put on hold due to the lack of funds for raw materials, forcing my father-in-law to take out a high-interest loan to keep things running. Nowadays, in order to repay the exorbitant interest, he, at 60 years old, is still running around outside borrowing money to pay off debts. My mother-in-law was so angry about this that she had a stroke, but there was no extra money to hire a doctor for treatment, and she didn't dare tell her eldest son, who has always had a bad temper. And I know that the only person in this family who can control Jiang Zai is this eldest brother. Moreover, brother-in-law Jiang Su is also the only sensible one in the family. Eldest brother Jiang Su joined the army at 16, became a battalion commander in his 20s, and has a decisive, no-nonsense personality. Back then, it was him who prevented Jiang Zai from marrying Shui Wan. Jiang Zai is very afraid of this eldest brother. Don't even talk about you all. If I could save Xiao Wan, I'd rather trade the whole world for her. You simply don't understand what Xiao Wan means to me. For the first time, Jiang Zai mustered the courage to defy this eldest brother. Jiang Su was furious when he saw his younger brother still so utterly stubborn. You've ruined the whole family for the sake of one woman. I haven't even settled this with you yet, and you still dare yell at me. If I don't give you a beating today, it'll only be because I'm in a good mood. He casually cut a willow branch on the spot, tied Jiang Zai's hands with it, and hung him from a tree. Seeing this, I quickly came jogging over from behind the tree, holding my belly. Brother, don't do it, it'll kill someone. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. He won't die. Jiang Su's eyes burned with rage. That damn kid Jiang Zai doesn't even care about his parents, let alone his own woman. What an idiot. Jiangze, who had been keeping his eyes closed the whole time, suddenly opened them. She brought it on herself, serves her right, willing, deserved. I've lost count of how many times I've heard these words from Jiangze's mouth. Jiang Zhe said through gritted teeth, if it weren't for her back then, Shui Wan and I would have been together long ago. She wouldn't have suffered, and she wouldn't have gotten sick. Tell me, who else is to blame if not Yin Wuxuan? Yes, just because I obeyed my parents' arrangement and married him. In Jiangze's eyes, I became the most shameless woman in the world to this day. He still hasn't realized that Shui Wan was killed by this cruel world and by his own hypocritical self. Back then, Jiangsu did give him a choice, but despite claiming he would marry no one but Shui Wan, he ultimately couldn't let go of the comfortable, pampered life at home. To the outside world, he claimed his parents forced him to marry me by threatening suicide. He ended up with a reputation for filial piety, but he brought great suffering upon both Shui Wan and me. After saying this, he caught sight of me standing behind Jiangsu. I was wondering why my brother suddenly rushed back. It was you who went and tipped him off, wasn't it? Yun Wuxuan, you are truly vicious. You won't even allow me to quietly see Xiaowan off on her final journey. In my past life, I always believed that if I tried hard enough, I could warm Jiangze's heart, so I was filial to my in-laws, managed his household well for him, and no matter how he treated me, I never spoke a single ill word about him in front of outsiders. Even when Jiangze wanted to save Shui Wan, although I verbally disagreed, after agonizing over it for a week, I still gave him the gold hairpin. I never cared about getting anything in return. My wish was always simple. I just hoped that one day Jiangze would see my worth. But until the day I died, Jiangze never saw it. Before I could even speak, Jiangsu sneered and said, it was me who stopped you from marrying Shui Wan back then. Are you still going to blame me for her death? Jiangze stubbornly turned his head away. I didn't. Jiangsu raised the willow branch high. You didn't. You still say you didn't. Then, his wails echoed through the woods. I stroked my belly and didn't try to persuade him any further. Having lived a second life, what I wanted wasn't to clear up misunderstandings with Jiangze and reconcile. What I wanted was to completely break free from Jiangze. From start to finish. 5. Jiangze was tied up and taken home by his own brother. Seeing her younger son beaten black and blue, my mother-in-law, lying in bed, couldn't help but ask, what happened this time? Why is Sewer back? 2. Since her stroke, she can't handle any shocks, so I didn't dare tell her about Jiangze's commotion at the morning hall. Jiangsu threw Jiangze back into his room, then turned to confront his own mother. Such a big matter, and you didn't even inform me. In just a few sentences, he spilled everything that had happened to Jiangze over the past 2 days. Mother-in-law was so angry she started coughing violently. That unfilial son, he won't be satisfied until he's driven me to my grave. It's all my fault. If only I could have stopped him from taking the payment back then, our family wouldn't have ended up like this. I wiped away my tears. The elder brother-in-law slammed the enamel cup on the table. This has nothing to do with you. It's all on my parents for not raising him properly. If I'd known earlier, I should have taken him into the army to be disciplined. He wouldn't have turned into such a good-for-nothing. Mother-in-law spoke somewhat guiltily. I was afraid he couldn't handle the hardship back then, but you still shouldn't have beaten him up like this. Jiangze was the child born late in his parents' lives, and his father and mother had always doted on him excessively. In my previous life, no matter how he treated me, his parents would only lecture him verbally a few times, never truly disciplining him, which ultimately led Jiangze to deal me a cruel blow. Seeing her eldest son's furious expression, the mother-in-law turned and said, blame this old woman if you must. Had I known this wretched child would grow up to be like this, I should have strangled him the moment he was born. Hearing the conversation inside the room from behind the wall, Jiangze gritted his teeth and said, none of you need to blame anyone. I'll end myself right now. With Xiaowan gone, there's no point in me living in this world anyway. Hearing her younger son's words, the mother-in-law's emotions, which had just begun to settle, surged violently once more. Her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. 6. Every move Jiangze made at the funeral today was exaggerated and spread around. The town was small. Any family's affairs could become known throughout the entire town in less than half a day. Jiangsu carried his mother-in-law out, borrowed a tricycle, and pedaled frantically to take her to the town's health clinic. For a time, the Jiang family's series of messy affairs became the gossip everyone discussed after meals, and I was the main subject of their gossip. Some said I was pitiful, that my husband didn't take me seriously. Others said I was thick-skinned, claiming that if they were publicly humiliated by their husband, they would have hanged themselves long ago. There was no helping it. in this feudal era, men were the sky for women no matter what a man did, it was always the woman's fault in my previous life. I saw these words as monstrous threats, besides being tormented by Jiangze. Their gossip was like a blunt knife, grinding back and forth on my heart, causing me equal pain. Having experienced the tragic ending of my previous life, I now understand that no matter how vicious these words are, they cannot harm me in the slightest. I simply let them go in one ear and out the other. I was just about to go see how my mother-in-law was doing when, as soon as I stepped out, a few neighbors gathered around me, chattering away and telling me to endure it if I could, whose life hasn't been like this. Men are always eating from the bowl while eyeing the pot, at least the one. Jiangze head outside is gone now. Your good days will come after this. I was no longer the weakling I used to be, and I flew into a rage. Have you sorted out your own mess yet? And now you're sticking your nose into someone else's business. What? Do none of you have anything better to do? Seeing that I was not someone to be trifled with, the gossiping women scattered in an instant. Someone from the little shop at the gate came to call for me. Wu Shuang, there's a phone call for you from your maiden family. Hearing that, I immediately rushed to the little shop. I really wanted to tell my mother about what happened to me in my previous life. I wanted to tell her how wronged I had been and how much suffering I had endured. Mom, I called softly toward the other end. Sweetheart, I've heard everything. That Jiangze is such a scoundrel. What kind of mess is this? I thought my mom would understand me, but to my surprise, her next words were, but there's no other way, you're already married, you just have to endure and keep the marriage going. My mother's words felt like a plunge into an icy abyss. I couldn't accept it. Mom, I want to divorce Jiangze. He doesn't love me at all. What's all this talk about love? Your father and I got through life the same way. As long as you can keep the marriage going, that's enough, my mother said impatiently. I hung up the phone and went to the clinic. My brother-in-law, Jiangsu, told me that my mother-in-law was fine. My brother-in-law was considerate. He said I looked haggard and must not have had a good night's sleep in days since I finally managed to come home. I should do my filial duty. I counted on my fingers, calculating the days. It suddenly occurred to me that in the previous life, Jiangze drank pesticide tonight. 7. I deliberately dawdled on my way home. Jiangze was locked in his room by my eldest brother and was currently trying to figure out how to break the lock from inside. Hearing the sound in the yard, he knew it was me and said without courtesy, Yun Wushuang, open the door quickly. I want to go see Xiao Wan. Today is the first day she was buried. I need to accompany her at her grave. She's so afraid of the dark, lying alone in a small coffin, buried in the mountains. The sounds of animals at night would surely frighten her. Mentioning Shui Wan, his tone immediately softened again. It's all my fault. How could I have left her alone in the mountains? I turned a deaf ear and went straight into the room to rest. Jiangze broke down in the room, losing control. Yun Wushuang, you did this on purpose. Fine, since you won't even let me see her after she's died, then I'll die too. Even in death, Xiao Wan and I will be together. I deliberately provoked him. Then go ahead and die. What's the use of just shouting? If you dare to die, I might even respect you as a real man. You, great, you're just dying for me to die, aren't you, Yun Wushuang? Do you have someone else on the outside? Just waiting for me to die so you can openly cheat, Jiangze slandered to vent his anger. Yes, your dear one sister is waiting for you down below, I said. Jiangze was successfully provoked by me. Fine, I'll do as you wish, Xiao Wan, don't be afraid, I'll come find you tonight. His words sounded as if they were meant for me. Of course, I also knew that Jiangze's talk of wanting to die was just empty words. I saw the wound on his wrist from when he cut it at the funeral. It wasn't even as deep as when I accidentally cut my hand while chopping vegetables. After he said this, the noise in the room disappeared. I also went back to my room to rest, paying him no further mind. 8. My sleep has always been very light. In the middle of the night, I heard a muffled groan coming from Jiangze's room and immediately focused my attention. In my previous life, after hearing this sound, I worried that something had happened to Jiangze and immediately went to his room to check on him. Unexpectedly, I happened to catch him just after he had drunk pesticide. In the early hours of the morning, not a single clinic or health center was open. To save him, I used my frail body to stubbornly carry the 8-meter-tall Jiangze, walking all over the town and knocking on every doctor's door. Upon learning he had drunk pesticide, most doctors felt it was beyond saving and were unwilling to treat him. I went door to door, kowtowing and begging for help. Finally, an old traditional Chinese medicine doctor over 70 years old agreed to give it a try. He administered medicine to Jiangze, making him vomit it out. Jiangze was lucky to survive. After daybreak, I took him to the county hospital for a checkup, and he was indeed fine in this life. Upon hearing the noise, I just turned over and went back to sleep, but Jiangze seemed determined to wake me, letting out continuous, agonizing moans. Finally annoyed by the disturbance, I went to take a look at him. Jiangze had drunk pesticide and was writhing in pain, curled up and rolling on the ground. Seeing me, his tone remained harsh. Get lost, don't you dare interfere, I'll be seeing Xiaowan soon. I glanced at the pesticide bottle on the floor. TSK, no wonder he hadn't died yet after all this time. Judging by the small amount missing, Jiangze had at most taken a tiny sip. Not to mention this pesticide isn't paraquat, it's nowhere near that deadly. At the amount he took, even rolling around on the ground for 3 days and 3 nights might not kill him. I simply pried his mouth open. Aren't you trying to die? Come on, have some more, only then will you get to see your sister Wan. The liquid ran from Jiangze's mouth down to the floor. He shoved me hard and began gagging, sticking his fingers down his throat to make himself vomit. Yun Wushuang, you poisonous woman, are you trying to murder your own husband? Leaning against the door, I said in confusion, ever since Shuiwan died, you've been making a fuss about killing yourself. I'm just helping you out. How does that make it my fault? Jiangze glared at me and kept sticking his fingers down his throat to vomit. When he had almost finished vomiting, he leaned against the door, gasping heavily, but after a moment, the twisting pain in his stomach broke out in cold sweat all over his body. Jiangze panicked. Quick, quick, take me to the clinic. I leisurely cracked my knuckles. I say, at this hour of the night, you should stop making trouble. If you're going to die, why not do it quietly? Doctors don't sleep. Who has the time to save you? As soon as the words left his mouth, Jiangze coughed up a mouthful of blood. This time he was truly scared. Wushuang, I was wrong. I don't want to die anymore. Please save me. Once you begged to die, there's no taking it back. Acting like this, you should make Shuiwan even colder in the ground, I said mockingly. Just as I turned to leave, a sound suddenly came from outside the door. Wushuang, Mom got her period, and she told me to hurry back and find her a set of clothes to change into, but I couldn't find any. It was the voice of my eldest brother, Jiangsu. His appearance disrupted everything. Looking at Jiangze on the ground, I thought things were going badly, so I directly picked him up and rushed towards the door. Brother, it's bad. Jiangze drank poison and tried to kill himself. 9. Hearing my words, Jiangsu spat. This lunatic, he really can't give us a single day of peace. He then immediately took Jiangze and ran outside. At this moment, Jiangze had already passed out from the abdominal pain and the violent jostling. Jiangsu, thinking Jiangze was dying, ran even faster. He knocked on the door of a clinic. Doctor, help, my brother drank pesticide. The sleepy-eyed doctor rubbed his eyes impatiently. What kind of pesticide? It looks like paraquat. I deliberately added, there's no saving him. Take him back and prepare for the funeral arrangements. After saying this, the doctor directly closed the clinic door. It was the first time I saw Jiangsu soften his tone. He continued knocking on the door. Doctor, my brother is still so young. Please, save him. The lights inside went out, and there was no further movement. Jiangsu picked up Jiangze again. No, we have to try another clinic. Every clinic after that was the same in this life. Without me kneeling and begging for help, no doctor was willing to take that risk. On top of that, they knew Jiangze had drunk paraquat, a poison that, once even a single drop touches you, not even Hua Tuo reincarnated could save you from. No one was willing to lift a stone only to drop it on their own feet. Jiangsu, who had hit a wall, couldn't help cursing angrily. What kind of doctors are these? Anyway, there's no choice now. We can only wait until daybreak and take him to the county seat to have him checked. Tonight, it all depends on whether he can make it through. 10 at dawn. Jiangsu borrowed a car and took me and Jiangze to the county seat for further examination. The test results came back quickly. Because of the pesticide's toxicity, the amount he had drunk, and the long delay, his organs had already started to fail. The doctor shook his head helplessly. Even if Hua Tuo were still alive, it wouldn't help. Jiangsu asked him, trembling, how much time does he have left? No more than a week. The doctor sighed regretfully. So young, what could have driven you to such despair? Hearing this news, I expected to feel sorrow, yet my heart remained utterly still. I only felt that, finally, I was about to be free. It was then I realized that perhaps I had never loved Jiangze at all. Everything I did in my past life was perhaps just an effort to play the role of a good wife. In the hospital room, Jiangze finally regained consciousness. His elder brother, Jiangsu, held his head high. This man, tough all his life, struggled to keep his tears from falling. How could you be so foolish? If you died, what would become of Mom and Dad? They can't take another shock. And what about Wushuang? Jiangze gave a bleak smile. Ha, without Shawan, I don't want to live another day. As for everyone else, I simply don't care. At this moment, Jiangze didn't know that the process of organ failure was rapid. Don't be fooled by how fine he seems now. In a few days, his body will wither rapidly, like a flower deprived of nutrients. The next second, he glanced at me, his face clouding with displeasure. What's the matter, seeing that I'm not dead must be really hard for you to take, isn't it? Hearing Jiangze's words, Jiangsu said indignantly, enough, why do you always have to pick on Wushuang at every turn? She's your wife. Jiangze curled his lips into a cold sneer. Wife, she's the one who killed my Shawan. If she had agreed to sell her dowry to treat Shawan's illness, she might have been saved. In my previous life, he blamed me for selling the dowry too late. In this life, he blames me for not agreeing to let him sell it. Either way, Shui Wan's death is pinned on me. Jiangsu mocked. How dare you say that? What does Shui Wan have to do with you? Since when was it your place to save her? Besides, if you wanted to save someone, you should have figured it out yourself. How shameless to even think of using your wife's dowry to save another woman, and then have the nerve to blame her. Scolded by his own brother like this, Jiangze couldn't help but blush. So what? There were extenuating circumstances. Besides, I promised I would redeem the dowry for her later. Jiangsu clenched his fists tightly. She's not like you idiot. Shui Wan had stomach cancer that was terminal. Jiangze was stunned into silence for a long moment. Jiangsu went on. Do you know that the baby in Wushuang's belly is already 4 months old? In my previous life, before I could even tell him I was pregnant, the baby had already been aborted. Afterward, when Jiangze learned about it, he only blamed me for not protecting the baby well, and hated me even more. He slowly turned to look at me, only to see a mist of tears in my eyes. Thinking of what happened in my previous life, I bit back my tears and turned away, not wanting anyone to see how wretched I looked. Having gotten the answer, Jiangze couldn't help freezing there. Then why did she? She didn't have time to tell you. Jiangsu sighed. Given that she's pregnant, any grudges or resentment should be let go. Jiangze's eyes suddenly froze, and he stood there in a daze, speechless. The next second, he clutched his abdomen and vomited a large mouthful of blood. Doctors and nurses hurried over, shaking their heads. Jiangze looked at his brother Jiangsu in disbelief. Jiangsu turned his head away, tears streaming down his face, and only then did Jiangze realize he didn't have much time left to live. He asked me to stay behind to say a few words alone. The hospital room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Jiangze and I faced each other, and he finally spoke. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were pregnant. I smiled bitterly and said, it doesn't matter anymore. I suddenly remembered our wedding night, when Jiangze promised to treat me well for the rest of his life. During our honeymoon, we were as sweet as honey. I thought I would be happy from then on. It wasn't until later, when Shui Wan fell seriously ill and he was completely devoted to her, that I finally understood Jiangze had never truly let go of Shui Wan. Jiangze suddenly broke down in tears. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I regret it. I don't want to die. I want to see our child be born. Please save me. Okay. 11. Jiangze's condition worsened day by day. At first, he just had a stomachache. Then he started vomiting everything he ate, and in the end, he couldn't even get out of bed. My mother-in-law nearly fainted from grief, but for her son's sake, she managed to pull through. In the final few days, Jiangsu called me out of the hospital room. Wushuang, our Jiang family has wronged you. After Jiang Zhe is gone, don't stay bound to him. Find a suitable man and live a good life. On the surface, I refused, but in my heart, I thought the day had finally come. Jiangze overheard the conversation outside the room. With bloodshot eyes, he glared and said, I don't agree. Yun Wushuang is my woman. Even if I die, she can't marry anyone else. By now, he was like a walking corpse, struggling even to sit up. No one took his words seriously. Jiangsu even declared outright, don't mind him, I'm the one in charge of this family. Seeing that no one paid him any attention, Jiangze softened his tone and pleaded with me desperately. Wushuang, please don't leave me. You're all I have, and our child. This is my flesh and blood. He can't call someone else dad. I pried his fingers off one by one and whispered close to his ear, go in peace. Once you're gone, I'll finally be free. If public scorn couldn't drown a person, I would have left him long ago. Do you really hate me that much, Jiangze? Asked in disbelief. I remembered asking Jiangze the same question right before my death in my previous life. He answered me, yes, I hate you. I hate you especially. Now I've returned those words to him. 12. On that final day, Jiangze was hanging on by a thread, yet still stubbornly clinging to life. In his final moments, he stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. The Jiang family members stood by the door, wiping away their tears. With great difficulty, Jiangze lifted his head to look at me. Parting his lips slightly to signal me to come closer, his lips moved, and after a long while, he slurred out a sentence, "I don't want to die, Wu Shuang. I'm so scared." I leaned close to his ear and said, "Don't be afraid, Shui Wan is already waiting for you down there, you'll see him soon." He looked toward the window, his pupils beginning to rapidly dilate. With his last breath, he struggled to lean against my lower abdomen and murmured to my belly, "Child, Dad is sorry to you and your mom." I left him with my final words, "Jiangze, in the next life, and the life after that, let's never meet again." 13 On the day of Jiangze's funeral, a light rain began to fall from the sky. Jiangsu ultimately fulfilled his wish and buried him near Shui Wan. Unfortunately, that very night, a bolt of lightning struck and split his grave open. Later, after giving birth to the child, I negotiated terms with my brother-in-law and decided to leave the Jiang family with the child despite my in-laws' numerous attempts to obstruct. My sensible brother-in-law saw through it. If the child were raised by them, it would be ruined. To protect his brother's posthumous child, Jiangsu ultimately agreed to my terms. The condition I agreed to with him was that the child would still bear the Jiang surname and, upon growing up, would return to acknowledge his roots and ancestors. I knew all too well that as a woman without any background, it would be difficult for me to provide a prosperous life for my child in the future. My parents said I was still young and could still marry well. They began arranging blind dates for me again. A state-owned factory worker with children, an old widower who had lost his wife. Late one night, I took the money from the Jiang family, tucked away the gold hairpin my grandmother had given me, and boarded a train to the provincial capital. With that money, I settled into a new home in the provincial capital. With the help of my brother-in-law, I opened a clothing store and began a new life. From then on, the sky was high and the sea was wide, allowing me to soar freely. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. I have been married to Qin Shiwijing for 3 years, but everyone knows that the person Regimental Commander Qin cares about most is not his wife Lin Shu, but his dear sister Rong Qiaoling. Even when Rong Qiaoling deliberately pushed me into the river, he would only advise me to be more magnanimous. Qiaoling's parents saved my life. Now she's all alone, so of course I need to care for her more. You are my wife, you should understand me. Besides, she didn't do it on purpose. Can't you be more forgiving? Later, I suffered a high fever and miscarried, and my heart finally turned cold. That year, 1982, looking at the transfer order for secret scientific research in the northern frontier, I resolutely picked up my pen and signed. Agreed. December 8, 1982, inside the military district hospital. Sister Lin Shu, the baby, wasn't saved. Seeing the hesitant expression on Nurse Xiaofeng's face, I could roughly guess what had happened. But when I took that medical record and saw the black and white words, "patient confirmed miscarriage," I still couldn't help but suppress a sob. I lost the baby, Qin Shiwijing, and I have been married for 3 years. God knows how much I longed for this child. The moment Rong Qiaoling pushed me and I fell into the river, I was almost crying and begging Qin Shiwijing to save me, but he didn't. He just glanced at me and then swam straight toward Rong Qiaoling. At that moment, my heart was colder than the river water. Seeing me cry so sadly, Xiaofeng couldn't help but offer words of comfort. Sister Lin Shu, don't be too upset. You just got over your fever and need more rest. You and Commander Qin will have children in the future. There won't be any more. I lowered my eyes and silently replied in my heart, because Qin Shiwijing and I have no future together. I want a divorce. As soon as Xiaofeng left, the door to the ward was pushed open forcefully. Standing at the door was a furious Qin Shiwijing, who strode toward me. As soon as he opened his mouth, it was an indiscriminate accusation against me. Lin Shu, are you crazy? Qiaoling only said a couple of things to you, and you were going to shove her into the river. She's been frail since childhood and now I don't know how long it'll take for her to recover. I looked at Qin Shiwijing, the disappointment in my eyes completely unhidden. I didn't push her. Qin Shiwijing, you are my husband, and I am your lawfully wedded wife. Do you believe me, or do you believe her? My gaze seemed to sting Qin Shiwijing, and he turned his head away, changing the subject. Qiaoling's parents saved me. Now she's all alone, so of course I should care about her more. You're my wife, you shall. Do you understand me? It was the same old line I'd heard countless times before. Whenever Rong Qiaoling made things difficult for me, Qin Shiwijing would always tell me to be patient and magnanimous. I turned around with my back to him, my resistance very clear. Qin Shiwijing could tell something was off with me. But he only sighed and didn't try to comfort me. Can't you be a little more generous? Forget it. I still have to go look after Xiaoling. I made this congee for you too. You've caught a cold too, so have some. The thermal container carried the fragrance of millet congee, the very flavor Ron Xiaoling loved most. Even this bit of concern Qin Shiwajing showed me was merely an afterthought. He put the things down and turned to leave without another word, so decisively it was as if I were just one of his ordinary co-workers, not his wife. I chuckled self-deprecatingly, mustered my strength to get out of bed, picked up the thermal flask, and without hesitation tossed it into the trash bin. Then, from the cloth bag I always carried by the bedside, I pulled out a secret research transfer application for Xinjiang, which the chief had given me 2 days prior. Once the application is approved, I will be immediately transferred to northern Xinjiang for secret research. The return date is uncertain, perhaps 7 or 8 years, perhaps a lifetime. On the day I found out about the child, I was hesitant. Now, I picked up the pen and resolutely signed the transfer order. Lin Shu agrees. Xiaolin, it's really tough on you to leave right after being discharged from the hospital, but the mission requires it. You'll depart in 5 days. As I walked out of the office, the chief's words still faintly echoed in my ears. We set off early on the 15th. The transfer order was urgent, leaving me almost no time for farewells, but then I thought, since my parents passed away 2 years ago, the only person truly connected to me was Qin Shiwajing. Between him and me, there really wasn't much to say goodbye about. Once I had some free time at home, I started packing my luggage devoted to scientific research. I owned very few personal belongings. Occasionally, when I added a couple of new clothes, it was because Qin Shiwajing saw the nice fabric on Ron Xiaoling and had 2 outfits made for me. There were also over a dozen love letters Qin Shiwajing wrote when he was pursuing me, tucked away in the drawer. Back then, they made my heart flutter. Reading them now, they only feel ironic. Thorn, but I didn't take any of them, not even the wedding photos. I stuffed them all into a cardboard box and left it in the corner of the yard, ready to be thrown away. Just as I was almost done tidying up, there was a sound at the door. I was a bit surprised that Qin Shiwajing was willing to leave the hospital and bring Ron Xiaoling home, but that's fine too. The matter of divorce should also be set aside some time to be clarified. But when I opened the door, what I saw was Ron Xiaoling's face. Her innocent, smiling face, upon seeing me, gradually twisted into an expression of smugness. Sister Lin Shu, so you're home. Brother Shiwajing was worried that it would be inconvenient for me to live alone, so he brought me to your house so it'd be easier to take care of me. Sister Lin Shu, you won't mind, will you? Before I could even respond, Ron Xiaoling took it upon herself to walk into the house. Behind her, Qin Shiwajing also rarely showed a hint of embarrassment, saying to me with some remorse, "You've been discharged from the hospital. Why didn't you tell me so I could pick you up? About what happened before, I misunderstood you. I heard from the guards that Xiaoling accidentally bumped you down, but she didn't do it on purpose. And she fell into the water too, so don't hold it against her too much." After falling into the water, Xiaoling kept complaining of headaches and dizziness. I was worried something might happen to her if she stayed home alone. That's why I thought. Before Qin Shiwajing could say another word to me, Ron Xiaoling inside the room started making a fuss, shouting loudly, "Brother Shiwajing, come quick, this bed is so beautiful, can I sleep here?" It was the bed that Ron Xiaoling had taken a liking to. The very same bed that was meant for Qin Shiwajing and me as our wedding bed. To be honest, only Qin Shiwajing would think Ron Xiaoling's personality was that of an innocent, unworldly girl, but now, after she made such an offensive request, he should have started to get a hint of her true nature. Seeing Qin Shiwajing frown deeply, I naturally knew what the wedding bed meant. He immediately rejected Ron Xiaoling's request. While carefully observing my expression, "Xiaoling, this is the wedding bed of me and Lin Shu, you should sleep in the room next door." "That's fine too." Ron Xiaoling had rarely been refused by Qin Shiwajing, especially not in front of me. How could she be willing to give up? Ron Xiaoling immediately showed a hint of grievance, tugging at Qin Shiwajing's sleeve pitifully and said, "I'm sorry, Brother Shiwajing. I just saw something so beautiful for a moment and couldn't help myself. My parents passed away early. I haven't slept in such a good bed for a long time," as he had done countless times before. Qin Shiwajing's heart softened, and he turned his gaze toward me. I shook my head and let out a light, scornful laugh. In the past, a scene like this would have broken my heart, and I would have argued fiercely with Qin Shiwajing. But now, as the two of them performed this duet in front of me, I only felt bored. With a cold glance at the wedding bed, I turned and walked away. "Do as you please, I have matters to attend to. I'm heading back to the research institute and won't be returning tonight." Qin Shiwajing chased after me for a couple of steps, but stopped after hearing whatever Ron Chaling said behind him. He only called out from afar. My shadow called out, Xiao Shu, don't be angry, I'll pick you up from work tomorrow. Angry? I stopped being angry a long time ago since I don't love you anymore. Why should I care about that marital bed? Today is December 11th, 1982. I have 4 more days before I can leave, and I just want to leave. The next day after work, I saw Qin Shiwajing waiting at the door. Remembering the divorce papers in my bag that I hadn't given him yet, I eventually walked up to him. He walked towards me with a smile, carrying quite a few things in his hands. Xiao Shu, don't go to the cafeteria today. I got my meat ration coupons for this month. I'll cook you a nice meal at home. Later, I'll take you to get 2 sets of clothes made. What happened before was all my fault. Please don't be angry anymore. Take you to have 2 sets of clothes made. What happened before was all my fault. Please don't be angry anymore. Deputy Zhang's wife is an obstetrician-gynecologist, but she keeps saying that getting too angry is bad for a woman's health and bad for the baby too. Aren't you the one who loves children the most? Seeing the radiant, animated expression on Qin Shiwajing's face when he mentioned children, my heart ached as if pierced by needles. Tears almost uncontrollably welled up in my eyes. I glared at Qin Shiwajing with a face full of resentment and couldn't help shouting at him, how dare you bring up children? Do you even know, Sister Lin Shu? Oh, come on, don't be angry anymore. Ron Chaling popped up from somewhere and began to chatter nonstop. Brother Shiwajing, for your sake, absolutely refused to let me sleep on your wedding bed. In the end, I had to sleep on that old wooden bed next door. It's hard and not comfortable at all, though meant to mediate. Her words were full of complaints. This made Qin Shiwajing feel a twinge of apology toward Ron Chaling. Sorry, that's the wedding bed. That's why next time, I'll bring you some candy as compensation. Ron Chaling immediately seized the opportunity and chimed in. Brother Shiwajing, don't say next time. I heard you prepared a lot of good stuff. Let me join you for a meal. A meal meant for a couple's apology ended up being served for 3. Qin Shiwajing was busy in the kitchen, and it was Ron Chaling beside him who spoke first. Without Qin Shiwajing present, she no longer hid her fangs. Lin Shu, don't pretend to be magnanimous to fool anyone. You're actually furious, aren't you? Let me tell you, as long as you don't divorce Shiwajing for a single day, I will pester you both for a day. My parents were kind to Brother Shiwajing. He will never abandon me in this lifetime. I responded with an devoid of any particular emotion. To be honest, these matters have little to do with me now. I only wanted to hand Qin Shiwajing the divorce agreement as soon as possible and make everything clear. It would be better for us to part ways sooner, each going our own way. It would be good for me, for Qin Shiwajing, and even for Ron Chaling. I don't know which part of my attitude had touched Ron Chaling's fragile nerve, but she instead thought I was looking down on her, and with a vicious grin she pressed me, demanding, what are you G for? Do you also look down on me like everyone else because I'm an orphan? All these years in the military district, no matter how well I do, you, Lin Shu, always have to outshine me, and now you even want to take away my only brother Shiwajing. I'm telling you, don't get too smug, things won't go your way all the time. As soon as the words were spoken, Ron Chaling grabbed the boiling water from the stove and poured it over her own arm. A deafening scream pierced the air, followed immediately by Ron Chaling collapsing to the ground, crying and shouting accusations at me. Brother Shiwajing, save me, Sister Lin Shu is trying to scald me to death with boiling water. In the ensuing chaos, Qin Shiwajing pushed me aside, scooped up Ron Chaling, and rushed her to the hospital. Ron Chaling lay weakly nestled in his arms. I never imagined that Ron Chaling would go to such lengths to win Qin Shiwajing's affection. Then it was all the more reason for me to leave sooner. Go apologize to Chaling. Qin Shiwajing spoke with a cold expression, forcibly pulling me toward Ron Chaling's hospital bed. I won't apologize for something I didn't do. Qin Shiwajing clutched my wrist tightly and shouted, there were only the two of you at the scene. If not you, then who else could it have been? Looking at the ferocious man before me, I only felt utterly strange. Taking a deep breath, I said, when we fell into the river, I already asked you. Now I'm asking you one last time. Qin Shiwajing, do you believe me, or do you believe her? Qin Shiwajing fell into a long silence, then silently tucked the corner of Ron Chaling's blanket in place and said in a low voice, I only believe what I see with my own eyes. The answer is obvious. He doesn't believe me. After all these years as husband and wife, I still couldn't compare to the sibling bond between him and Ron Chaling. My tears fell straight down as I held back the blood-like taste rising in my throat. In this moment, it only felt more painful than when I miscarried. I forced myself to pull it together and wanted to finish the last thing, No matter what you think, I did not do what I didn't do, and I will never bow my head and apologize. You. He was so angry that he raised his hand to point at me, then lowered it again. Perfect. Today, we'll make everything clear once and for all. I took the divorce agreement out of my bag. Also, there are some things I want to talk to you about alone. Just then, Ron Chowling on the bed let out a timely groan of pain, which drew a pang of concern from Qin Shiwejing. He immediately got up and shoved me out from beside the hospital bed, then snapped, "The facts are right in front of us. What is there to explain? If you don't apologize, I can't possibly listen to another word from you." With a loud bang, the wooden door of the ward separated us. Qin Shiwejing stayed by Ron Chowling's bedside until evening and never went home. On December 13th, when I tried to explain, Qin Shiwejing called me cold-blooded. "You are simply a cold-blooded, vicious monster. Chowling is in this state, and you're still making excuses. Lin Shu, have you had enough of this nonsense, haven't you?" On December 14th, when I tried to discuss divorce, Qin Shiwejing drove me away. "Unless you apologize, I don't even want to look at you. Leave, I'm busy taking care of Chowling." On December 15th, Qin Shiwejing no longer saw me. Unwilling to give up, I waited at the ward door. I waited until my body froze, until I grew numb, until the car driver behind me urged me on. "It's time to catch the train. I can't wait any longer. I should go." The train whistle sounded through the station. In the end, I still never got to see Qin Shiwejing again, and I left nothing behind either except for the divorce agreement and the abortion medical record on the table. On December 16th, Qin Shiwejing felt an inexplicable sense of unease that left him restless and unable to sit still, because Lin Shu didn't come to bother him again today. As soon as Qin Shiwejing stepped out of the hospital gates, he saw his deputy adjutant talking to his wife. Her name was Jolie, and she was an obstetrics doctor at the military district hospital, and also Lin Shu's classmate. The thought of Lin Shu stirred complex emotions in Qin Shiwejing's heart. He had a vague sense that something was off about this whole affair, yet Ron Chowling was still lying in the hospital bed. He pondered it over and over, unsure of what to do. The moment Jolie saw Qin Shiwejing, she burst into a fit of giggles, exclaiming excitedly, "Regimental Commander Qin, Lin Shu is already 2 months pregnant, a man about to become a father. Why do you look so glum, father?" Those two short words struck Qin Shiwejing dumb, freezing him in place. Qin Shiwejing's eyes widened in disbelief, as if it took him a long moment to find his trembling voice. "Lin Shu, she is pregnant." Jolie's smiling face froze, and she asked in surprise, "You didn't know? It happened on the 8th, but then again, the first 2 months of pregnancy are the most unstable. Sister Lin Shu probably didn't tell you because she was worried." Qin Shiwejing was completely overwhelmed by the sudden happiness. He couldn't even wait for Jolie to finish speaking, grinning foolishly a couple of times, then threw out an "I'm sorry" and hurried home. It was Sunday. Lin Shu should be at home. Qin Shiwejing jogged all the way, still grinning like an idiot. His heart was filled with both joy and guilt, and he kept muttering to himself, "Lin Shu is pregnant. I'm going to be a dad. I'm a father." The 8th, that's the day she fell into the water. "I wonder if she's recovered well, if the pregnancy is stable. It's all my fault." During that time, I was only thinking about Xiao Ling, too busy to properly take care of Lin Shu, and during this period even more so. I need to go back and apologize to her properly. What's the point of clinging to pride? Pride is nothing compared to my wife. Lin Shu isn't that kind of person. There must be a misunderstanding. We'll clear it up when I get back. Qin Shiwejing muttered to himself all the way, excitedly pushing open the door to his home, but this time, he did not see Lin Shu. Panic surged in his heart again, and Qin Shiwejing instantly felt a sense of foreboding. He anxiously scanned the courtyard and bedroom, but saw no one, and could only shout Lin Shu's name. He desperately hoped to hear that familiar voice answer him once more, but there was only silence in the room. "Lin Shu, Lin Shu, Lin." Qin Shiwejing suddenly stopped. His gaze froze as he saw the miscarriage medical record on the table, due to prolonged submersion in water, resulting in persistent high fever and lung infection. Heavy vaginal bleeding and severe abdominal pain have occurred. The patient has been confirmed to have miscarried. Qin Shiwejing held the thin medical record, feeling as if his entire being was sinking heavily downward, with intense pain radiating toward his limbs and throughout his body. It spread, hurting him so much he could barely stand steady. In his mind, he recalled the scene of Lin Shu falling into the river that day. Her frail body was submerged in the cold river water. Her delicate face full of panic, with tears in her eyes, she cried out for help, but he did not respond. He simply watched coldly from the sidelines, then personally caused the death of his own child. Qin Shiwejing pulled aside the medical record, and the divorce agreement beneath it abruptly leaped into view. In that instant, countless emotions turned Qin Shijing's heart into a chaotic mess: pain, sorrow, remorse, regret. It felt like a 1,000-pound stone pressing on his chest, making it hard to breathe. It forced Qin Shijing's legs to go weak, and he collapsed to the ground in an instant. No, he and Lin Shu couldn't just end like this. He had to find Lin Shu, whether to apologize, confess his regrets, or even beg for forgiveness. He had to find her. Qin Shijing struggled to his feet and stumbled toward the door. "You're here, Xiao Qin." The institute's director seemed to have anticipated this. Seeing Qin Shijing burst in recklessly, he merely looked up and greeted him. "Director, do you know where Lin Shu went?" "We had an argument." The superior's attitude was not good, coldly interrupting Qin Shijing's words, arguing, "Xiao Qin, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. Xiao Lin's meaning is divorce." Qin Shijing immediately denied it, saying, "No, superior, I don't want a divorce. I know that during this period, I've done many things wrong by Lin Shu, but I know I was wrong now, and I promise you that I will treat Lin Shu well from now on. I beg you to tell me, where exactly is Lin Shu?" Qin Shijing's anxiety and remorse could not be faked. Seeing this, the chief could only let out a long sigh, shook his head, and said, "I really don't know what you were doing earlier. The matter between you and Ron Qiaoling, from the time you started dating Xiao Lin until now, those gossiping outside haven't stopped. I feel sorry for Xiao Lin, and you're someone from the military. You should be strict about relationships between men and women and personal conduct. Don't you understand these things?" Qin Shijing explained weakly. "The matter with Qiaoling is because her parents saved me. Later, both her parents passed away, leaving her, a young girl, here all alone, which was truly pitiful. So that's why The chief's anger flared up instantly. "So Xiao Lin deserves to be treated like this by you. Both her parents passed away 2 years ago, and she's all alone now. If you really want to repay a favor, you should persuade Ron Qiaoling to find a reliable person to date, and stand up for her if she ever gets wronged by her in-laws in the future. Instead of acting like this now, being all entangled and ambiguous, you're just wasting the prime youth of 2 young women for nothing. I'll be straight with you. Xiao Lin is joining a secret research project in the northern frontier, and she's leaving on the 15th. You know the nature of this work. She voluntarily accepted the transfer order, which means she's completely given up on you." Qin Shijing was scolded so thoroughly by the old commander that he was left speechless, and his heart ached so badly he could hardly breathe. Leaving on the 15th, no wonder, given Lin Shu's personality. Even after being treated like that, she still insisted on waiting at the door to see him. It turned out that was the last day she left. "There's no need for you to inquire further. Sign the divorce agreement and submit it to the organization department. From now on, Regimental Commander Qin should take care of himself." Qin Shijing closed his eyes, suppressing the sour sting in them, and walked out the door in a daze. Echoing in his mind was the final question the senior officer had asked him. "Regimental Commander Qin, given Lin Shu's character, do you truly believe Comrade Ron Qiaoling's incident was done by Xiao Lin?" By the hospital bed, Qin Shijing looked at Ron Qiaoling with a gloomy expression. Ron Qiaoling felt somewhat apprehensive and tentatively said, "Brother Qin, why are you looking at me like that?" Qin Shijing spoke up. "Qiaoling, I'm asking you very seriously. Was it really Lin Shu who scalded your arm?" Upon hearing this, Ron Qiaoling's expression immediately changed, but remembering that every time something happened, as long as she played the victim, Brother Qin would always take her side without asking for reasons, she eased her mind. With a pitiful and aggrieved look, she said, "Did Sister Lin Shu say something to you?" "Ah, it's all my fault. I spoke carelessly and made her angry. So Sister Lin Shu poured boiling water on me." "Brother Qin, please don't blame Sister because of this. My parents died early, so I have nothing to complain about." Upon hearing this, Qin Shui remained silent, only his gaze towards Ron Qiaoling growing more inscrutable. He stared until Ron Qiaoling felt a chill run down her spine, and only then did Qin Shijing slowly speak. "The military district has developed a new technology that can detect human fingerprints on objects. I happened to take it for a test, and the specialist there told me that on this water bottle, there are only your fingerprints." "Ron Qiaoling, I ask you one last time, who exactly did this?" Ron Qiaoling had no defense left. Panic instantly shattered her composure, and she cried out towards Qin Shijing, "I did it myself. Big brother Qin, don't blame me. We grew up together, but ever since you got married, your heart has only belonged to Sister Lin Shu. Clearly, I was the one who came first. Why should all the good things be taken by her?" "Lin Shu." Qin Shijing no longer softened. at Rong Qiaoling's tears as he had before. Instead, he pressed on while the iron was hot and asked, "What about the incident of falling into the river?" Rong Qiaoling said timidly, "It was me. In a moment of desperation, I pushed a couple of times. I didn't expect Sister Lin Shu to lose her balance. Big brother Qin, I was just too afraid of losing you." Even though he had anticipated it, hearing the truth firsthand, Qin Shuijing still felt as if he had fallen into an icy abyss, his blood seeming to freeze solid. The pain in his chest felt as if a large gash had been carved open with a knife, a raw, bloody agony. Pale-faced, he turned towards Rong Qiaoling and said, "Did you know that Lin Shu is pregnant? But because of the fall into the river, she had a miscarriage." Rong Qiaoling was stunned, rooted to the spot. She only wanted to make her suffer, but she never intended to cause her to lose her child. Qin Shuijing's eyes reddened. He turned away, unable to hold back the tears that fell uncontrollably, his voice trembling as he said, "I was wrong. From the very beginning, the way I treated you, the way I treated Lin Shu, was wrong. One wrong step led to another. We grew up together. We shouldn't have ended up like this." "Rong Qiaoling, you are a murderer, and I am an accomplice." "No, the principal offender." Qin Shuijing stood dazed in the alley outside his home. His feet hadn't moved. He had been standing at the mouth of the alley for a long time. He was afraid to go home. Before Lin Shu left, she had erased every trace of herself, and he had no idea how to face an empty home. "Sir, excuse me, please move aside." The little old man pulling a flatbed cart behind him, who collected scrap, said to Qin Shuijing with an apologetic smile. Only then did Qin Shuijing snap back to reality. His body instinctively moved aside, his eyes scanning blankly before stopping on a cardboard box in the corner of the cart. Qin Shuijing stopped the old man with the cart, hugged the cardboard box to his chest, and urgently asked the little old man, "This cardboard box, these are my and Lin Shu's wedding photos. Where did you get this from?" The little old man replied, "Just the day before yesterday, a lady in this alley sold it to me, saying she didn't want any of these things anymore. She said she divorced her husband and would never come back." The old man's words touched Qin Shuijing's most sensitive nerve, and he immediately raised his voice to retort, "No, it's not a divorce. There's no divorce, it's just a quarrel." Qin Shuijing anxiously took out a banknote from his pocket and handed it to the old man, buying back the cardboard box. Then he turned around and hugged that cardboard box, jogging away without looking back, not even taking the change. He dared not look back even once, as if this could cover up the truth, pretending that nothing had happened, that Lin Shu hadn't left yet. By the light of the tungsten bulb, Qin Shuijing carefully examined the items in that cardboard box. In the wedding photo, the newlyweds sat side by side, smiling at the camera, looking forward to their happy life after marriage. Layer upon layer in the cardboard box were the love letters he had written back then. He hadn't expected Lin Shu to have kept them all these years, opening and reading them one by one, as if he and Lin Shu were meeting for the first time all over again, meeting, falling in love, and then getting married. Qin Shuijing looked at the letter paper, crying and laughing at the same time. Not knowing how far he had read, Qin Shuijing suddenly held up the letter paper and smiled toward the back. "Lin Shu, do you remember that Zhou comrade with the pigtails we mentioned in our letters? She's now..." The words got stuck in his throat before he could finish speaking, because behind Qin Shuijing, there was no longer Lin Shu. Lin Shu had already chosen to go to the secret scientific research facility in the northern frontier. Qin Shuijing knew in his heart that 8 years, 10 years, perhaps for this entire lifetime, Lin Shu would never return. Qin Shuijing's body trembled violently from grief, and he murmured, "Lin Shu, I miss you." 7 years later, Northern Frontier Research Base. Looking at the busy figure in front of me, I smiled somewhat sheepishly and said, "Senior brother, you don't have to think of bringing me every good thing. This transfer is like returning to my hometown for me. And besides, aren't you coming to teach with me? If I really lack something, I'll ask you for it." Li Qingxi snorted, pretending to be angry and complaining to me. "Don't I know you? You're used to being independent. If you really lacked something, you wouldn't ask. You'd definitely find a way to solve it yourself. I might as well bring everything for you, so I won't have to worry." I felt a bit awkward, having been seen through, and didn't stop him anymore, giving Li Qingxi a grateful smile. On the plane, looking at the clear blue sky, I couldn't help but recall leaving 7 years ago. The sky was the same, only my state of mind is vastly different now. Li Qingxi, sitting beside me, seemed to notice my heavy heart and cautiously said, "You're going back, still teaching at the military district. You and he are bound to run into each other. Let all those unpleasant things be in the past. Lin Shu, your senior brother hopes you'll look forward I took a deep breath, shook my head, and said with a forced smile, "Senior brother, don't worry about me," although he never signed that divorce agreement in the end. The organization department approved my divorce application during our second year of living apart. By all counts, he and I have been divorced for 5 years now, since witnessing the mushroom cloud rising over the northern frontier desert. In my heart, no romance or love matters anymore. Senior brother, you underestimate me. Upon disembarking the plane, the welcoming party had already been waiting for quite some time. Conversation, settling in, and arranging the teaching content, everything proceeded in an orderly fashion, and time passed unnoticed until the first day of my teaching assignment arrived. I stood outside the door, listening as the senior officer inside proudly introduced me to the officers in the audience. For this in-depth study session, the organization has specially assigned 2 experts to instruct our comrades. Both are outstanding contributors to the successful explosion in the northern frontier. Young and accomplished. Now, let's welcome Dr. Lin Shu. I stepped through the enthusiastic applause, pushed open the door, and walked in. The moment I entered, I felt a scorching gaze firmly fixed on me. It was Qin Shuijing, as if the suppressed, agonizing emotions could no longer be contained. The person he had thought of day and night for 7 years now stood within his reach right before him, smiling, moving, speaking. It was Lin Shu, alive and real. Qin Shuijing stood up uncontrollably, with reddened eyes. He looked at me in disbelief and murmured, "Lin Shu, away for 7 years, divorced for 5. I hadn't expected that when we met again, Qin Shuijing would lose control like this." My gaze swept over the epaulets on his uniform, and I smiled as I smoothed things over. It seems this comrade's enthusiasm for learning is really quite high, so I won't keep chatting with everyone any longer. Please take your seat first, and then we'll officially begin this lesson. Qin Shuijing seemed to force himself to calm down, silently nodding before taking a seat. For the rest of the class, that gaze like a thorn in my back never disappeared. As soon as class was over, Qin Shuijing stopped me. Looking at the familiar face before me, I smiled politely and said, "Brigade Commander Qin, long time no see. Is there something you didn't understand?" My obvious coldness and distance made Qin Shuijing somewhat distraught. He took a deep breath and slowly began to speak. "Lin Shu, I know you hate me. I deserve it. I'm sorry about what happened back then. I know I did many things wrong, constantly misunderstanding you, giving up on you. I caused you a lot of pain, and I know it might be too late to say all this now." I still just smiled. To be honest, discussing the past with Qin Shuijing again was like touching an old scar that had long since healed. It didn't hurt, it still remains, fiercely etched across the skin. Just a regret. It's okay, it's all in the past. I have something else to do, so I'll get going now. I tossed out a farewell without saying more. Watched Li Qingxi approaching from afar, and stepped forward to meet him. But in Qin Shuijing's eyes, forgiveness is something even harder to accept than hatred. Qin Shuijing hung his head, the corners of his eyes reddening, his eyelashes trembling slightly, then suddenly gripped my wrist with force. I had never seen him so pleading with me in such a humble tone. "We can't just let it be in the past. I admit my way of repaying kindness was a complete mess, stubbornly mixing gratitude and love together. In the end, what got delayed was the lives of all 3 of us, but I truly recognize my mistake now. I've also made things clear with Roan Xiaoling, and she has already left. Between us, there will no longer be anyone or anything stopping me from running to you. I swear, I will treat you twice as well from now on, to make up for the past, and never let you suffer the slightest grievance again. Lin Shu, I beg you to give me one more chance." I didn't respond, just pulled my hand free from Qin Shuijing's grasp and walked away. "Teacher Lin, that Commander Qin is looking for you again. This time, he brought something called roses. I heard they're from Yunnan over there. It's been brought over, and it's absolutely beautiful," a colleague teased with a playful, mocking look. I lifted my head from the documents, pinching the bridge of my nose in frustration. Li Qingxi beside me seemed to notice my irritation and walked over to console me. "Lin Shu, you just finished that report after staying up all night. Go get some proper rest first. I'll talk to him for you." I shook my head, took a sip of strong tea to perk myself up, and stood up, saying, "It's fine, if he doesn't see me, he won't leave." As soon as I stepped out, I saw Qin Shuijing waiting for me at the corner, holding a bouquet of bright red roses. His smile was even brighter than the flowers. Seeing me approach, he jogged over. "I remember you always wanted to see what flowers from the south looked like. I specially asked someone to get these. Do you like them?" I looked at the bouquet in front of me and fell silent. Over the past 3 months, no matter how I reasoned or refused, Qin Shiwajing seemed truly determined to start over with me. Flowers, clothes, whatever was trendy, he eagerly brought them all to me. Qin Shiwajing even revived his old courtship tricks from our youth, sending love letters one after another. Seeing my continued silence, Qin Shiwajing nervously said, "Is something wrong? You don't look well." "It's okay, you don't need to feel pressured, you can keep refusing me, no matter what you say, I won't give up anyway. If you don't like roses, I'll give you Chinese roses, peonies, or others. There will always be one you like." I finally accepted the bouquet of roses and said to Qin Shiwajing, "No, I really like roses, thank you. I just stayed up too late last night and am a bit tired." This was the first time in a while that I was willing to accept a gift from Qin Shiwajing. He was pleasantly surprised, even a bit embarrassed, and said, no need to thank me. I'm glad you like it. I'll bring you more next time. By the way, didn't you say you were tired? You should go back and rest. Go on. 2 new movies just came out at the cinema. I'll bring you the movie tickets tomorrow. It's up to you whether you go or not." Qin Shiwajing's face flushed red, and his flustered, awkward demeanor looked exactly like when we first spoke. I smiled for no particular reason, as if remembering something, and asked, "You said before that you bought back everything I threw away. Do you still have those letters?" Qin Shiwajing nodded his head vigorously like pounding garlic. Yes, I do. And the wedding photos, I've kept them all safe and sound." I took a deep breath and said gently, "Do you still remember the lakeside where we went on our first date? Tomorrow afternoon, bring that cardboard box with you. I have something to say to you." I left the corner and ran straight into Li Qingxi. "Sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, I was just afraid something might happen to you. I heard from the nurse Xiao Fang at the hospital that this Qin Shiwajing used to treat you terribly. From the way you're acting, do you want to start over?" "Lin Shu, don't get me wrong, I don't want to interfere with any of your decisions, I just don't want you to suffer any more harm." I smiled at Li Qingxi, looking into his concerned, fervent eyes. What was there not to understand, whether it was Qin Shiwajing or Li Qingxi? Avoiding it was never a good choice. I just wanted to cut the Gordian knot. How could that be? "I know, senior brother, that you're doing this for my own good. Over these years, whether in the northern frontier or here, senior brother has treated me as well as one possibly could. Senior brother, I know how you feel. You like me. Then do you want to be with me?" Even at Li Qingxi's current age and with his normally steady temperament, hearing his beloved speak so directly still made him blush like an awkward young fool. He scratched his head somewhat sheepishly and pondered for a moment, but in the end, he shook his head. Li Qingxi's expression was bashful yet serious. "I don't want to. I'm not foolish. I can see that you don't like me. You've seen the clouds over the northern frontier and the sky as it is today. You are independent, strong, clever, and beautiful. You are a free bird, and I don't want to cage you. I only hope you can fly safely and happily." With tears glistening in his eyes, he met my gaze, his affection overflowing as if making a vow. He said, "If you call me Xixiang, I will always be your Xixiang. If you are willing to call me Li Qingxi, I will always be your Li Qingxi." The lake shimmered with ripples. By the time I arrived, Qin Shiwajing had already been waiting for a long time. He was holding a cardboard box and walked toward me. "Lin Shu, I brought the things." Qin Shiwajing handed me the letter in his hand and said guiltily, "And this? It's a letter from Qiaoling to you. She heard you were back and had someone send it over. After you left back then, the miscarriage, we all found out. She feels terribly sorry toward you. It's also my fault over these years, making her unable to distinguish between dependence and love. She said she made a very serious mistake, that what she did back then was too extreme. 7 years ago, she already applied to go to the forestry station." I slowly unfolded that piece of letter paper. Inside were Rong Qiaoling's confession and tears. After I left, she was not as happy as she had imagined. She was just too afraid of losing. Her parents entrusted her to Qin Shiwajing's care, making her believe that Qin Shiwajing was everything in her life. My appearance made her hysterically twisted, as if her only support had been snatched away. Until my miscarriage, my departure, she realized her own repulsive face, like a madwoman, a criminal. This shouldn't be. Her parents, herself, none wished to raise such a Rong Qiaoling. She owes me an apology. She should go and atone for her sins. I traveled far to the northern frontier for scientific research to support the nation's prosperity, while she willingly spent her entire life enduring the bitter cold at the forest farm, guarding the border. Sister Lin Shu, I have made too many mistakes, but I have nothing to compensate you with. I can only follow in your footsteps and do something that you would find meaningful. Sister, I am no longer jealous of you. I want to become you. Forest Ranger Rong Qiaoling, with respect. Reading. My eyes grew slightly moist, as if the thin letter paper carried the scent of wind and snow from the forest farm. She has grown up. Seeing my tearful smile, Qin Shuijing couldn't help but be moved as well. I've missed you so much these 7 years you've been gone. I also deeply regret not cherishing you properly back then and breaking the promises I made to you when we got married. If it weren't for those things, perhaps our child would already be in elementary school. I've made up my mind. If you don't come back, I'll probably spend the rest of my life alone, carrying my longing for you with me. So, could you give me one more chance? Please believe me. This time I will definitely make you happy. I didn't say anything. Instead, I buried my head in the cardboard box, rummaging through it. Finally, beneath layers of letters, I brushed the dust off an envelope, found it. That was the letter Qin Shuijing wrote to me during our first confession, full of the awkwardness and sincerity of youth. Looking at the familiar handwriting, I couldn't help but curl the corners of my lips into a smile. I began to read aloud. Comrade Lin Shu, I implore you not to accept the confession from Comrade Jiang of Class 3. While he may seem decent on the surface, he has a habit of heavy drinking in private and will not treat you well in the future. I hope you will be my girlfriend. I promise to respect you, cherish you, and always be good to you. If I fail to do so, please abandon me without hesitation. Do not look back, do not soften your heart, because no matter what, I hope Comrade Lin Shu lives a happy life. I looked at the sheet of paper, and my eyes grew a little sore. With a choked-up voice, I said, I can't promise you that, because the 19-year-old Qin Shuijing told me not to look back. Qin Shuijing froze for a moment after hearing that, and immediately understood what I meant. Tears began to roll down from his eyes. He laughed and cried at the same time. Looking somewhat embarrassed, still, he forced himself to stay composed and said to me, Sorry, Lin Shu, I understand. Under the warm winter sunlight, I turned around and walked away in the opposite direction. A familiar figure was waiting for me on the far side of the lake. I raised my arm, and that figure ran toward me. I called out to him loudly, Li Qingxi. 19-year-old Qin Shuijing would never let 18-year-old Lin Shu suffer the slightest grievance. 18-year-old Lin Shu also believed that 19-year-old Qin Shuijing would bring her happiness, but now I am 30 years old, and I am leaving. Story 2. I transmigrated into a sadomasochistic novel and became the mother of the female lead. When I saw the female lead cornered by bullies, without hesitation, I rushed up and kicked them a few times, catching the bullies off guard. Afterwards, I took the female lead's hand and said seriously and solemnly, If anyone asks, you say you beat them. The female lead looked at me in surprise, her eyes full of confusion. Mom, I gently patted her head. Be good, you're a minor, and fighting isn't illegal for you. I transmigrated into a sadomasochistic novel and became the mother of the female lead. In the original book, the female lead was neither loved by her father nor her mother. She was bullied at school during her studies, and after growing up, she was treated as a substitute by a scumbag man. She even gave her kidney for love and finally died of gastric cancer. Her life was as miserable as it could be. I decided to be her real mother once and change her fate against the odds, leading her onto the path of a feel-good novel. On the first day I transmigrated into the book, I was called to the school by the head teacher because the female lead got into a fight. When I walked into the office, Chi Wei was standing in the corner with her head down, and there were obvious slap marks on her face. Opposite her stood 3 arrogant people. As if they were interrogating a criminal, I remained calm, walked up to the head teacher and greeted him. Hello, teacher, I'm Chi Wei's mother. What happened? The man with glasses nodded slightly at me, his tone neither cold nor warm. We suspect that Chi Wei stole Huang Jinyao's mobile phone, so we asked you to come and handle this. I turned my head and glanced at the 2 people standing opposite. They should be Huang Jinyao and her mother. I nodded and pointed to the slap marks on Chi Wei's face. Then what about this? The head teacher adjusted his glasses frame. Well, because Chi Wei stole the mobile phone, Huang Jinyao got emotional for a moment, and the 2 got into a fight. Hearing this, I just found it ridiculous. Just now they were only suspecting Chi Wei of stealing the phone, but now they've already convicted her. I looked at Huang Jinyao again. She was clean from head to toe without any scars. On the other hand, Chi Wei, besides the obvious slap marks on her face, her school uniform was also full of footprints and dust. Anyone with eyes could tell that this was a case of bullying where the many bullied the few. I suppressed my anger and asked the head teacher, Teacher, whether it's about stealing the phone or fighting, shouldn't we check the surveillance? The head teacher shook his head. There's no surveillance in the classroom. Hee. After all that, it turns out they were acting as if they were the police handling a case and the judge carrying out the sentence. They really think highly of themselves. I looked at Chi Wei. Wei. They said you stole the mobile phone, did you? Chi-Wei looked up at me, her face full of grievances, with tears in her eyes, and her voice trembling. I didn't, that's my phone. I nodded and raised my hand to pat her head to comfort her, but as soon as I raised my hand, she involuntarily stepped back. Are you really stepping back half a step like that? My hand stopped in mid-air, and I felt a bit embarrassed. Alas, I can't blame her. In the original book, Chi-Wei had an instinctive fear of me as her mother. I'll take it slow. I withdrew my hand and said to the head teacher and Huang Jinyao and her mother, since we each have our own story, let's call the police. I looked at Huang Jinyao with a serious expression, but there's one thing to note, if the value of a mobile phone is over 3,000, the real thief will be sent to prison. Huang Jinyao, you know this, right? Huang Jinyao was stunned by my question. Although she was guilty, she still insisted, if anyone is to be arrested, it should be Chi-Wei. Why are you looking at me? I sneered. Are we playing Who is the Spy here? I've read the original text. How could I not know who the real culprit is? I took out my phone, entered 110, and put my thumb on the call button, looking at Huang Jinyao provocatively. Fine, then I'll call the police. I counted in my heart. 1, 2, 3. As expected, Huang Jinyao stopped me. Wait. I raised my eyebrows. What? Did you remember whose phone it is? After all, she was young and not very scheming. Huang Jinyao's face was already flushed red at this moment, and she stammered, It was a mistake. Chi-Wei's phone looks very similar to mine. Hearing Huang Jinyao say this, her mother and the head teacher finally understood and quickly came up to me to say nice things. Huang Jinyao's mother said, Chi-Wei's mother, kids are just playing around, don't take it seriously. The head teacher said, Yes, this is all a small matter, our school can handle it, there's no need to involve the police. I squinted my eyes and looked at them obliquely. Fine, then how do you think the school should handle it? Huang Jinyao's mother and the head teacher looked at each other, hesitated for a long time, and then said, Then let Huang Jinyao write a self-criticism and apologize to Chi-Wei. Can a self-criticism be eaten? If an apology is useful, why would anyone read a feel-good novel? I pointed to the slap marks on Chi-Wei's face. No need for the self-criticism, no. One wants to read that nonsense. Who slapped her? Let us slap them back, and this matter will be over. Hearing what I said, Huang Jinyao's mother and the head teacher looked at me in shock. Huang Jinyao's mother tried to persuade me. Chi-Wei's mother, how can you educate your child like this? I put out a proper smile on my face and retorted, Then how did you educate yours? To turn Huang Jinyao into this. Hearing this, Huang Jinyao's mother's face turned red and then white. I pulled Chi-Wei forward, patted her on the back, and encouraged her, Go on, slap her back, right on the face. Hearing me say this, Chi-Wei was like a frightened little rabbit, looking at me in fear. Well, forget it. Alas, after all, she's the female lead of a sadomasochistic novel, her personality is too soft. I sighed, and then slapped Huang Jinyao in the face. After a few seconds, 5 red finger marks appeared on Huang Jinyao's face, and I nodded in satisfaction. I said to Chi-Wei, Look, I'm showing you how today. Next time, you have to do it yourself, understand? Chi-Wei opened her mouth wide, looking at me in shock. Everyone present thought I would let it go, and this slap was indeed unexpected. Even Huang Jinyao herself took a long time to react. She stared at me with red eyes. How dare you hit me, you bitch? I raised my eyebrows and looked at her, my eyes full of warning. Not only do I dare, but if you bully Chi-Wei again next time, I'll hit you even harder. After dealing with this little episode, I took Chi-Wei out of the office. She kept her head down all the way and didn't say a word. Does it still hurt? I asked. She looked up at me, shook her head, and her eyes were full of fear. Are you scared? I asked again. She nodded and replied to me in a weak voice, I'm sorry, this apology was unexpected. What are you sorry for? Chi-Wei's face was full of guilt. I caused you trouble. My goodness. Is this the logic of a sadomasochistic novel? The female lead not only has to be bullied, but also willingly thinks that the mistake is on her side. Sister, you've been brainwashed. I smiled helplessly, put my hands on Chi-Wei's shoulders, and said seriously, It's not your fault if you're bitten by a dog. The only mistake you made today was not picking up a stone to drive the dog away, understand? Chi-Wei looked at me, her small eyes full of confusion, and she stood there blankly. Alas, maybe my metaphor was too good. I added, People will encounter troubles every day in life, but you have to be strong. We don't look for trouble, but we're not afraid of it either. Hearing this, Chi-Wei finally reacted a bit and quickly explained to me, I didn't look for trouble, Well, all my passionate speech was in vain. Consider it unsaid. I patted her on the shoulder. Okay, I know, go to class. I looked at Chi Wei's small back and couldn't help sighing. Changing a sadomasochistic novel into a feel-good one will take a lot of effort. It's a long and arduous task. After coming out of Chi Wei's school, I rushed home without stopping. In the original book, Chi Wei's father passed away in an accident a year ago. As a young widow, I found a rich old man and lived a carefree life myself, ignoring Chi Wei. But now I don't want to have a twilight romance with the old man. I want to cultivate a powerful female lead for a feel-good novel. However, for a female lead in a feel-good novel, who isn't a rich second generation, I have to quickly figure out how much money I have in hand, otherwise, I wouldn't even have the nerve to call myself the real mother in a feel-good novel. However, the sadomasochistic novel really didn't disappoint me. I rummaged through all the bank books, bank cards, and stock accounts of the Chi family, and the total amount was less than 4 digits. The only valuable asset in this house might be this old and shabby small house. However, unless this house is demolished, I can only try to run into the rich old man so that Chi Wei can become a rich second generation. What a disaster. I sat on the ground blankly, looking at everything in front of me, feeling completely disheartened. Just when I thought I was at the end of my rope, the phone rang, and the caller ID showed it was my mother. I answered the phone, and the old lady on the other side said in a bad tone, "Chulan, where's the living expenses for your brother this month? Why haven't you transferred it yet? What the hell? Are you pretending to be dead with me? Your sister-in-law is pregnant, and you still haven't given the living expenses for the pregnant woman. Do you have any shame? Transfer the money quickly." My mother's words woke me up like a dream. My original self was a brother-favoring person. She used up all her and Chi Wei's father's salaries to buy a wedding house for her brother every month. She also transferred living expenses to her brother and sister-in-law, allowing them to lie at home and do nothing but idle away their lives. Even her marriage to the rich old man was because her brother's son wanted to go to a noble kindergarten, and she really couldn't afford the money. Thinking of this, I couldn't help laughing. "Mom, listen, thank you." I happily hung up the old lady's phone. "Money, here it comes." I immediately took a taxi to the real estate management bureau. As I expected, the house my brother lived in was still under mortgage, and it was tied to my housing provident fund, so it was still in my name for the time being. I immediately applied for a replacement of the property ownership certificate by reporting it lost, and then listed the house on the housing transaction website. I made a series of quick moves. Well, we can say that I'm one big step closer to cultivating a powerful female lead for a feel-good novel. I quickly called Chi Wei. Such exciting news should be shared with the female lead to make her happy. However, I called 3 times in a row, but Chi Wei didn't answer. I frowned, feeling that something was wrong. I slapped Huang Jingyao so hard today. As a bully, she would most likely take revenge on Chi Wei. Thinking of this, I rushed to the school by taxi, taking 3 steps as 2, but it was the evening rush hour, and the taxi was stuck in traffic. It really made me impatient. I got out of the car and stopped a motorcycle. I quickly stepped onto the back seat. "Sir, to the gate of No. 8 middle school. Here's 50 yuan, no need to give change." The motorcycle driver looked at me sinisterly through his helmet. I patted his helmet and said anxiously, "Hurry up, I'm going to save someone's life. If I'm late, it'll be too late." The driver was a decent person. Hearing this, he didn't even wait for the red light. He stepped on the gas and rushed out. When I arrived at the gate of No. 8 middle school, I took out a 50 yuan bill and slapped it on the driver's chest. "I won't say more to thank you." Then I turned around and rushed towards the alley at the school gate. I quickly ran to the entrance of the alley and saw Chi Wei being cornered by a group of people led by Huang Jingyao. Huang Jingyao was holding a utility knife, threatening Chi Wei. "Kneel down and apologize to me." Chi Wei was crying, her whole body trembling. She knelt down with a thud. I'm sorry." Huang Jingyao reached out and patted Chi Wei's face. "You low life, you still dare to mess with me." Then, Huang Jingyao gave a look to the boy next to her. The boy understood and walked up to Chi Wei, taking out a bottle of yellow liquid. "Drink this bottle of urine, and we won't beat you today." Chi Wei looked up at the boy, her eyes full of horror. I'm sorry. Chi Wei started to apologize frantically, saying sorry and kowtowing to this group of people at the same time. She was trying to beg them to let her go in this way, but this group of people became even more excited and arrogant when they saw Chi Wei being submissive and kowtowing to admit her mistake. The boy grabbed Chi Wei's hair and lifted her head up. I said, "Drink this bottle of urine, and we won't beat you. What are you afraid of?" After saying this, Huang Jinyao and her group burst out laughing and scolding at the same time. You're such a worthless person. Seeing this scene, I was so angry that my teeth itched. I picked up a brick nearby and rushed up, hitting the boy on the head with it. You're so proud of bullying a woman. I think you're the worthless one. The boy covered his head and turned around, staring at me viciously. Who the hell are you? How dare you hit me? I walked over and helped Chi Wei up. Never mind who I am. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your mother and let you know what a real man is. After saying that, I punched him in the face. Before transmigrating into the book, I had practiced mixed martial arts, and my coach had a golden belt. With this punch, the boy fell to the ground directly. Seeing this scene, Huang Jinyao couldn't hold back and shouted, "All of you, go!" Several burly boys rushed up first, but I kicked them out with 2 or 3 kicks. Taking this opportunity, I handed the brick I just picked up to Chi Wei. "Take it." Chi Wei took the brick with a confused look on her face, looking at me in a daze. I sighed. "What are you standing there for? Do something." After saying this, I rushed up, first dislocated the arms of several boys, and then slapped each of the girls across the face. Huang Jinyao was a shrewd one. She didn't dare to confront me directly and ran to Chi Wei to bully the weak. Huang Jinyao was punching and kicking Chi Wei with a ferocious expression, while Chi Wei timidly kept backing away. I was going all out in the front, but she was being attacked from behind. It really made me angry. I roared, "Chi Wei, if you don't hit her with that brick today, don't call me mom." Hearing this, Chi Wei finally summoned up her courage. When Huang Jinyao punched her, she held the brick and made a gesture in front of the other's forehead. All I can say is that the movement was beautiful, but it didn't cause much harm. Alas, forget it. This can also be considered a big step forward for Chi Wei. After dealing with the people in front of me, I walked over, grabbed Huang Jinyao by the collar, threw her aside, and then turned to look at the bullies lying all over the place. I showed mercy today. If there's a next time, it won't be so easy. You'd better watch out. After saying that, I pulled Chi Wei and left. When we reached the entrance of the alley, Chi Wei and I were stopped by the motorcycle rider from before. The rider took off his helmet. He had sword-like eyebrows, star-shaped eyes, a straight and handsome facial features, and a tall and strong figure. He seemed to be about my age, a middle-aged handsome guy. I couldn't help but recall that when I gave him the money, in my haste, I slapped the 50 yuan bill on his chest muscles. The feeling was really not bad. Unfortunately, as handsome as he was, he had a mouth that ruined it. The first thing he said when he saw me was, "I've called the police." "Don't move, brother, you didn't call the police when I was standing up for justice. Now that it's all over, you're being a backseat driver." However, my complaint was useless. The sound of the police siren soon rang out. In a panic, I grabbed Chi Wei's hand and said seriously and solemnly, "Wei, when the police question you later, say that you beat them all." Chi Wei was still in a state of shock. Hearing this, she was even more confused and stared at me blankly. I explained, "You're a minor, fighting isn't illegal for you, and the police will be understanding." Hearing this, Chi Wei looked at me in surprise and shouted in disbelief, "Mom." I patted Chi Wei's head. "Good girl, Wei, that's the decision." "Okay." The motorcycle rider heard our conversation and mumbled softly, "She's really a mother." His tone was full of disdain. I rolled my eyes at him. He didn't understand anything. A powerful female lead can bend and stretch, and besides, Chi Wei has the protagonist's halo. I just don't know if the protagonist's halo in a sadomasochistic novel works well. Soon, Chi Wei and a group of high school students were taken away by the police. The motorcycle rider was named Nanting. He filmed the video of Chi Wei being bullied and gave it to the police as evidence. As for the fight later, it seemed that there was a problem with his phone, and he didn't record it anyway. Chi Wei was the victim in this matter. Although the police found it hard to believe that Chi Wei single-handedly fought a group of people, according to my testimony, they also didn't believe that I, a delicate housewife, could beat up a group of people, according to Huang Jinyao and her gang's testimony. But I knew how much force to use. After being beaten, besides feeling pain, Huang Jinyao and her group didn't have any serious problems found on their bodies, so this matter ended with mediation. Walking out of the police station, I felt that the air was especially fresh, but I felt a bit annoyed when I saw Nanting. He didn't seem to think he was in the way. He came over cheekily and greeted me. "Have you learned martial arts?" I gave him a glare. "What, do you want to fight me?" Nanting had a smile on his face, still angry. I called the police for Chi Wei's sake. I looked at him sideways. "Oh," Nanting patiently explained, "these people suffered a loss today. They might come after Chi Wei again later." Calling the police was to warn them. "Look, I didn't even show the video of you fighting." I thought what he said made sense. then frowned and looked at him warily. "You're not asking for money, are you? I declare in advance that I'm very poor." Hearing this, Nanting threw his head back and laughed, then took out a business card from his black windbreaker. "I not only don't want your money, but I can also give you money. I run an MMA training gym and I'm in short of coaches. You're very professional. I want to hire you as a coach with a high salary." I looked at the black business card with a gold-plated edge in my hand. It was really stylish. I raised my eyebrows. "How high is the high salary?" Nanting held out 2 hands. "The minimum monthly salary is 100,000 yuan, and there are bonuses for good performance. Is running a martial arts gym so profitable? The house I put up for sale was only worth 2 million yuan. Calculated like this, isn't Chi Wei one big step closer to becoming a powerful female lead?" I immediately grabbed one of Nanting's hands. "Deal. I'll report for work tomorrow." After starting to work at the fighting gym, I also dragged Chi Wei to learn MMA. Those bullies bullied Chi Wei every day just because she couldn't resist. Once Chi Wei's fists are strong enough, those people will naturally know to scram, which is more effective than anything. So I asked Nanting to give Chi Wei free private lessons. Nanting was puzzled about this. "Why don't you teach her yourself?" I crossed my legs. "Haven't you heard that children are like ancestors? How can I teach her?" Nanting looked disbelieving. "With the way you teach your child, you're the ancestor, right?" Actually, Nanting was right. I don't really treat anyone as an ancestor, but Chi Wei and I had just managed to ease our relationship a bit. If I went to teach her and made her fall a few times, wouldn't that make her hate me? I was too lazy to explain and directly said to Nanting, "Are you going to teach her or not? If not, I'll change to another fighting gym to work." Nanting had to yield to my power. To be fair, Nanting was professional as a coach in just half a year. Among students of the same weight class in the fighting gym, Chi Wei was considered to have above-average combat power. Most importantly, such a passionate sport had corrected some of her inherent timidity. Before, she was so easily frightened that she would walk around when she saw old ladies quarreling on the street. Now, even if she saw hooligans fighting, she could walk by calmly. However, just when I thought Chi Wei had gotten out of the sadomasochistic novel track, I received a call from the head teacher asking me to go to school again. Thinking that Chi Wei was probably beaten again, I sighed. Alas, the female lead still can't do without me. Her mother. Once again, I found myself in a familiar scene. In the office, Chi Wei was standing quietly in the corner. Opposite her stood 3 arrogant people, as if they were interrogating a criminal. I walked in, and regardless of the head teacher and the parents present, I pointed at Huang Jinyao's nose. "Didn't I say that if you bully Chi Wei again, I'll teach you a good lesson?" As soon as I said this, everyone looked at me in surprise. Huang Jinyao raised her head, one hand still pressing on her bleeding nose, stammering, "Who's bullying whom?" I was also taken aback when I saw Huang Jinyao's appearance, then turned to look at Chi Wei. Although she was covered in dust, she didn't seem to be injured. I asked Chi Wei in surprise, "Did you do this?" Chi Wei shook her head. "She hit herself." Hearing this, Huang Jinyao pinched her nose and said angrily, "If you hadn't provoked me, would I have hit the desk?" Chi Wei ignored her, looked at me, and explained, "They asked me to borrow money, and I refused. They pushed me around, and I was just defending myself." I raised my eyebrows. "How many against how many?" Chi Wei, 1 against 5. Are you hurt?" Chi Wei, "No, not bad, not bad. The child is teachable." My heart as an old mother felt very gratified, and a smile unconsciously appeared on my face. I nodded in satisfaction. The head teacher looked at me sinisterly. "Chi Wei's mother. Chi Wei injured her classmates. Aren't you going to scold her?" I came back to my senses, coughed twice, and put on a serious expression. "Chi Wei, do you know you're wrong?" Chi Wei stared at me blankly, not knowing how to answer. I winked at her, indicating that she should respond. Chi Wei asked in confusion, "I'm wrong?" I nodded and continued, "What did you do wrong?" Chi Wei was really confused this time. I turned to the head teacher, Huang Jinyao, and Huang Jinyao's mother, and said slowly, "First, you should try peaceful means first. When classmates force you to borrow money, you should report it to the head teacher first. Only then, whatever happens next is reasonable, understand?" Chi Wei's face lit up, and she nodded vigorously. "Second, you didn't master the key points of the moves. How could you let someone hit the desk during a friendly push and shove among classmates? The desk is immovable, but are people's minds also inflexible?" My words were clearly veiled criticism, but Huang Jinyao and her mother didn't know how to refute me. For a moment I continued leisurely. "Third, last time Huang Jinyao found people to beat you outside the school, and we even went to the police station with a video as evidence. This time, you should learn your lesson, record some videos. find some witnesses, etc., to avoid disputes. After I finished listing the 3 points, the faces of the head teacher, Huang Jinyao, and Huang Jinyao's mother were very ugly. With a smile on my face, I turned to the 3 of them. Do you think we should hurry up and go to the police station again? If we're any later, Huang Jinyao's nosebleed will dry up. Seeing that I didn't blame Chi Wei but instead seemed to want to make a big deal out of it, the 3 of them quickly tried to dissuade me, saying one after another, "It's not necessary, it's just a fight among classmates." I took the opportunity and slapped my hand. Exactly, that's what I thought too. Well, I finally felt vindicated. My female lead in the sadomasochistic novel has stood up. I felt like I was standing in the office with an imposing manner of 2'8". Just as I was feeling elated, the head teacher woke me up. Chi Wei's mother, I actually called you here for something else today. I couldn't put down the smile on my face and replied with a smile, "Go ahead." The head teacher saw my expression, turned his head and secretly rolled his eyes, then took out a few test papers. Chi Wei's grades have always been poor, and in the past 6 months, they've dropped sharply. To be honest, I can hardly imagine that she still has so much room for decline. I picked up Chi Wei's monthly exam papers and kept flipping through them. Her scores in math, physics, and chemistry were in single digits. If I hadn't seen the head teacher's gloomy expression, I might have thought the exam was out of 10 points. In an instant, my mood plummeted from the sky to the ground. It's not enough for Chi Wei to just be more cheerful. We don't have a family business for her to inherit. She has to be able to support herself. This is also my fault. When I was reading the book before, I didn't notice this problem. The female lead was bullied in junior and senior high school, and later was saved by the male lead. The male lead's family was quite wealthy, although the female lead was mistreated. She didn't seem to have trouble making money, but the situation is different now. We're changing it into a feel-good novel, and Chi Wei also has to experience the hardships of a working person. No, I have to talk to her properly. So after dinner, I pulled Chi Wei aside, took out her monthly exam papers, and said in as gentle a tone as possible, "Wei, are you having any difficulties with your studies?" Chi Wei looked at me, her eyes a little evasive. I can't understand it." I pointed to the papers. "Which question don't you understand? Which point?" Chi Wei lowered her head and didn't answer. I didn't want to be so pushy, but according to the head teacher, Chi Wei didn't listen in class at all, so, putting aside the factor of ability, her attitude towards learning was a big problem. I sighed. Wei, do you have a plan for your life?" Chi Wei looked at me timidly and replied in a low voice, "I do." I thought I was hallucinating and asked again, "What?" Chi Wei stood up, took out a stack of drawing papers from her room, and handed them to me. "I have a plan. I want to learn painting and go to an art academy." I took Chi Wei's paintings and started flipping through them. I'm not a professional, so I can't judge the quality of these works, but as I looked at these paintings, I was deeply attracted and soon empathized with her. Chi Wei's previous works had a cold color tone, filled with a sense of loneliness and despair. In the past 6 months, her paintings had gradually taken on some warm colors, like a drowning person seeing the sparkling light of the sun reflected in the water. Maybe she really has a talent for painting. This really surprised me. The book didn't mention that the female lead had this skill. I slowly put away Chi Wei's drawing papers and carefully placed them on the table. After thinking for a while, I slapped my thigh, stood up, and said, "Study. I'll support you to learn painting. We'll go for the art exam route." Chi Wei looked up at me, first in astonishment, then in delight, and finally with red-rimmed eyes. She ran over and hugged my waist. "Thank you, Mom." In the past 6 months, although the relationship between Chi Wei and me had improved a lot, this was the first time she ran over to hug me. My heart warmed, and then I pushed her away without hesitation. I said seriously, "The art exam also depends on professional course grades, so I'll sign you up for a cram school. We need to focus on both aspects." "Got it." Chi Wei wiped her tears and nodded heavily. "I'll study hard." After Chi Wei entered high school, she started to get busy, and I was also busy making money. I didn't know that art exam training was so expensive. I just agreed without thinking. Fortunately, the house I listed online was sold, and I got 2 million yuan, so I was quite well off for the time being. However, while I was happy, my leech-like mother and good-for-nothing brother were miserable. So, my mother and brother made inquiries everywhere and found the fighting gym. They came to make trouble while I was at work. My mother must have graduated from a drama school. Her acting skills were really something. She plopped down at the entrance of the fighting gym and started wailing. "Oh, my God, my daughter is an ungrateful wretch. She kicked her own brother out of the house and turned her back on her family." Everyone, please judge for me. My brother chimed in from the side. Chu Lan, come out, look what you've done to our mother. Do you have any conscience? Soon, under the shouts of this mother-son duo, a large crowd gathered at the entrance of the fighting gym. I was in the middle of teaching a class. When I heard the commotion at the door, I ran out without even having time to take off my boxing gloves. I glared at my brother and said impatiently, "What are you crying about here?" My brother had been arrogant at first, but when he saw my outfit, his momentum immediately weakened by half. "Don't be so tough, you have to give mom an explanation." When my mother saw me, she cried even louder, pointing at my nose and scolding, "Ungrateful wretch, you sold the house behind my back, you're trying to kill me." The onlookers who didn't know the truth thought I was a NET who secretly sold my parents' house and didn't care about my brother. They started pointing fingers at me. With my hot temper, I couldn't stand this kind of treatment. I gave my brother a flying kick. "Do you have any shame? I bought the house. Lending it to you to live in for so long was already very kind of me." My brother was kicked by me and sat down on the ground on purpose. "She's hitting people, everyone, judge for me, she's hitting people. Didn't they say that when a scholar meets a military man, reason falls on deaf ears? Why is it the other way around for me?" I was getting a headache from the noisy crying and shouting. Just as I was thinking about giving my brother a good beating, Chi Wei ran over and knelt down in front of my mother. Chi Wei knelt in front of my mother, wailing and grabbing my mother's hand, trying to make her hit herself. "Grandma, it's all my fault. Hit me. Originally, my parents bought this house and wanted uncle to live in it forever. But after my dad died, our family had no income. My mom sold the house to support my studies. Dad, my dad is dead." Chi Wei's wailing suddenly silenced the scene. Everyone finally understood what had happened and cast pitying glances at Chi Wei, a little girl who had just lost her father and whose family had to sell the house to afford her education. What a tragic story. My mother and brother were completely stunned by Chi Wei's actions. After a long while, my brother ran over and pulled Chi Wei up, sternly accusing her. "Little girl, what nonsense are you talking about?" Seeing this, Chi Wei pretended to be frightened and backed away with a scared look on her face. "Uncle, don't hit me. I was wrong. The aunts around couldn't stand it anymore and stepped forward to hold my brother back. "How can you hit a child? The child is so pitiful." Encouraged by the aunts, the crowd turned their blame towards my mother and brother. Realizing that things were going wrong, my mother pulled my brother and slipped away in embarrassment. After the crowd dispersed, Chi Wei stopped crying, took a few tissues, wiped away her tears, and her expression returned to normal. To be honest, at this moment, my mouth was wide open, and I could probably swallow an apple. I exclaimed in disbelief, "Wei." Chi Wei looked at me and showed a proud smile. "Next time they come, just tell me, and I'll drive them away." I looked at Chi Wei in surprise. "How did you learn all this?" Chi Wei said proudly, "You taught me. Last time in the office, you said to try peaceful means first, master the key points, and find witnesses. Was that what I meant? This ability to draw inferences, this quality of being better than the teacher. My God, is this still Chi Wei? No, this is Chi Wei 2.0. My kid has finally made it." However, when I recalled Chi Wei's appearance just now, the way she called out for her father, and the way she backed away in fear when facing my brother didn't seem completely fake. So, I asked with concern, "Did my brother often hit you before?" Chi Wei looked at me, a flash of confusion in her eyes, but she soon nodded. I asked again, "Do you miss your dad?" Chi Wei smiled indifferently. "Not really, he didn't pay much attention to me before. I just never understood why he didn't like me. I wanted to ask him the reason, but now I don't have the chance." I felt a pang of sadness in my heart. Before I came, Chi Wei had suffered a lot in her 10+ years of growth. Her previous introversion, timidity, and inability to resist were also greatly related to her upbringing. I patted her head and comforted her. "It's not your fault, you're just a child, you can't decide what adults do. It's not your fault." Chi Wei looked up at me with a smile in her eyes. "I know, and now I have you." Hearing this, I also smiled. "Yes, from now on, you have me." Chi Wei and I sat at the front desk of the fighting gym, smiling at each other. Nanting, carrying a helmet and with a messy hairstyle, pushed the door open in a rush. "Who came to cause trouble? Are you okay, Chu Lan?" I replied with an I'm fine." Chi Wei chased them away. The nervous look on Nanting's face when he entered finally relaxed. He put one hand on my shoulder. "You scared me. I thought someone was bullying you." Chi Wei looked at this scene, sizing us up with her eyes. "Mom, you and Uncle Nan, how should I explain this?" To put it simply, Nanting was chasing me. I'm a looks and money-oriented person, so I agreed to consider it, but I thought it'd be better not to tell Chi Wei for now. After all, in her perception, I had just lost my husband not long ago. It might seem unfaithful to have a new relationship so soon, so I stammered, well, how should I say this? Seeing that I couldn't say anything clearly, Chi Wei was rather calm. I think Uncle Nan is nice. I agree to him being my step-dad. Wait, I haven't even agreed to Nan Ting yet. What are you agreeing to? Hearing this, Nan Ting beamed with joy. As expected of my disciple, I didn't teach you in vain, so, you two are singing in harmony and making decisions for me. Just as I was about to argue with them about this, a young man wearing the same school uniform as Chi Wei pushed the door open and entered the fighting gym. This young man had delicate features, and his eyes exuded a gloomy and aloof aura. I immediately had a bad feeling. The young man walked straight up to Nan Ting and leisurely called out, "Dad, Chi Wei," and I stared at him in confusion. Then the young man greeted Chi Wei. What a coincidence, you're here too. Nan Ting and I looked at each other. After a long moment of shock, I came to my senses and started to sort out my thoughts. I first looked at Nan Ting with a cold tone. You told me you were single. What's with this big sun? Nan Ting turned his head away awkwardly, muttering, I'm divorced, so, I am single. I gave him a fierce glare. Is there anything else you haven't told me? Better confess now. Nan Ting took a deep breath and then started to explain in a rush. My ex-wife is a tough-as-nails CEO. We had a personality clash and separated a long time ago. The child takes her last name and is under her care. We have no other contact except about Su Kan. After hearing this, I fell silent. So, this young man was really Su Kan, the male lead in the original book. The scumbag who treated Chi Wei as a substitute, and I might become the step-mother of the scumbag. And the mother-in-law. I was completely thrown off. My mind was in a mess. Nan Ting had something to do and left the fighting gym with Su Kan. After they left, I looked at Chi Wei. After hesitating several times, I finally asked, do you know Su Kan? Chi Wei nodded. He's the student council president. I was in charge of painting for the school anniversary, and I communicated with him. I probed, are you too close? Chi Wei thought for a moment and shook her head. We've talked no more than 3 sentences in total. Not close. The half of my heart that was hanging in the air finally dropped. I continued to ask, Wei, do you like Su Kan? Chi Wei's face turned red at this question. Mom, I looked at her seriously. I'm asking seriously. Answer me properly. Seeing that I wasn't joking around, Chi Wei started to think seriously. Then she said slowly, I don't like him. Besides, Su Kan has a girlfriend, and she's in our class. That girl has a delicate temperament, and recently, Huang Jinyao and her gang have targeted her. Su Kan is kind of her protector. Hearing this, my thoughts raced. Maybe this was the so-called butterfly effect. Because of my arrival, Chi Wei's fate in the original book world had changed. The target of Huang Jinyao's bullying had changed, and the person who had a tragic love with Su Kan had also changed accordingly. I furrowed my brows, thinking about the causes and consequences. Chi Wei saw that I had been silent for a long time and thought I didn't believe her, so she continued to explain, Mom, do you know how Su Kan protects his girlfriend? Su Kan stood up for that girl, made an appointment to fight with Huang Jinyao and her gang to vent her anger, but behind Su Kan's back, Huang Jinyao treated that girl even worse. Also, when that girl was scolded by the head teacher because of her poor grades, Su Kan even threatened the teacher with his school board member mother. Now all the subject teachers have simply given up on that girl. I looked at Chi Wei. You don't like this kind of protection. Chi Wei shook her head seriously. Su Kan seems to be protecting her, but he didn't solve any problems. Instead, he enlarged the conflict. In the end, that girl can only rely on him and has no other choice. At this point, Chi Wei looked at me and smiled. You're right, everything has to rely on oneself. Being strong is the absolute truth. Chi Wei's words were logical and full of the boldness of a powerful female lead in a feel-good novel. However, it kind of sounded like she was destined to be single, but at least she was out of the tragic love track with Su Kan and wouldn't end up giving her kidney and dying of depression. So, I didn't say anything more. As the saying goes, everything is difficult at the beginning. When I first came, I put a lot of effort into changing Chi Wei's fate as the female lead in a sadomasochistic novel, but once Chi Wei changed her mindset, things went much more smoothly. Chi Wei successfully passed the art exam in her senior year of high school. Her foundation in professional courses was relatively weak, but she was hard-working. Before the college entrance examination, she never went to bed before 3 a.m. I felt very pained, seeing her working so hard day and night, but Chi Wei enjoyed it. I'm striving for the life I want. Fortunately, hard work pays off. Chi-Wei finally managed to get into the art academy with the minimum passing score. After Chi-Wei entered college, she would call me on video every week. When she talked about painting, she was always beaming with joy. She also said that the professors at the art academy praised her for her talent and said she could make a living from it during college. She also dated 2 boyfriends. When she was in a relationship, she couldn't stop smiling, but when she found they were not suitable, she could always make a rational decision and was never love-struck. Over the years, Chi-Wei has handled people and things very maturely. I'm very relieved about her. As for me, not long after Chi-Wei left home, Nanting proposed to me. You're so lonely at home by yourself, why not be with me? At least I can be your fighting sparring partner. I rolled my eyes at him. Please have a clear understanding of yourself. Your fighting skills can't even last 2 moves against me. I'm with you purely because you're rich and good looking. Hearing this, Nanting pestered me, holding my hand. That's okay, no matter what you're after, as long as I have it, it's fine. So, besides being the mother of the female lead in a sadomasochistic novel, I gained another identity, the step-mother of the male lead in a sadomasochistic novel. Since I'm the step-mother, I should do something, so I used my status as an elder to bring Sukan's girlfriend to the fighting gym to learn MMA. I also told her the story of Wang Baochuan digging wild vegetables from time to time. Since she got together with Sukan, she had suffered a lot of cold looks from the Su family, and she looked haggard. Now, Sukan's white moonlight has also returned to the country, and it seems that a melodramatic love triangle is about to unfold. I thought that this girl's getting on the path of a sadomasochistic story had something to do with me, so I might as well give her a hand. If she wakes up and leaves Sukan, it'll be a good deed on my part. But in the end, a person's fate is their own choice. What her future will be like depends on her. After Chi-Wei graduated, she went to work at a gallery, and her paintings also began to gain recognition in the circle. Later, she got engaged to the gallery owner, achieving both career success and love. 1 year after the engagement, Chi-Wei and her fiancé came back home to hold the wedding. On the night before her wedding, I slept with her in the bridal chamber, waiting to send her off. At night, Chi-Wei tossed and turned and couldn't fall asleep. I asked, "Can't sleep, nervous?" Chi-Wei turned to face me. "Not nervous, I just have something to say to you." I replied with an indicating for her to continue. Chi-Wei looked at me, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "You're not my real mom, are you?" I widened my eyes in surprise, but soon I relaxed. She was so smart. It was only a matter of time before she found out. I asked, "How did you find out?" Chi-Wei slowly replied, "My mom would never come to school, let alone stand up for me. My mom wouldn't teach me to be independent or help me fight. My mom wouldn't sell uncle's house or support me in pursuing my dreams. Besides, you had many flaws." Hearing her say this, I chuckled. So, Chi-Wei had found out about me as early as the first time we met. I asked, "So, do you think these changes are good or bad?" Chi-Wei also showed a smile on her face. "I like my current life and the changes you brought me. Before you came, my life was full of a sense of powerlessness. It seemed to have a fixed track, and I was powerless to resist, but you helped me break that track and let me make my own choices." I looked at the confusion in Chi-Wei's eyes, hesitated for a while, and decided to tell her, Wei, actually, the world you live in is a sadomasochistic novel. That's why you had that sense of being bound and powerless. But I want to tell you that no one's fate is predetermined. Even if you get a sadomasochistic novel script, you can still change the future. Hearing this, shock flashed in Chi-Wei's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. Her reaction was beyond my expectation. I asked, "Aren't you surprised?" Chi-Wei nodded. "I am, but it's like the brain in that theory. Our world is inherently illusory, just a product of our imagination." Chi-Wei paused and then continued, "But so what? I still love my life and look forward to tomorrow's sun. Instead of thinking about things I can't control, it's better to seize the moment and enjoy the present." I looked at Chi-Wei, filled with indescribable emotions. The once frail and indecisive little girl had now become so wise and brave. She might not be the all-powerful female lead in a feel-good novel, but she was definitely an independent and decisive adult. Chi-Wei looked up at me. "Can you tell me your real identity?" I replied, "Actually, I'm just an ordinary reader who couldn't stand by and watch." I showed a sly smile. "Or, you can call me the noble member." The end.